It's round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series here at Magny-Cours. The grid forming, and for a race that's going to run into the darkness. The last 15 minutes or so expected to be in the darkness. The grid starting to take shape for what promises to be another enthralling 3-hour race in this new series for 2011, with this race having 10 brands on the grid. It's a 3-hour race with everybody having to make 2 mandatory pit stops, and the weather now better than it has been all weekend. It was very wet yesterday, and the track temperature 23.5 degrees, the humidity 73%, the air pressure you can see, and the good news is that it's dry and there's some sun in the sky, whereas the teams have had limited dry weather running this weekend. They go into this a little bit on the back foot because the bulk of the running has been done in the wet or the damp conditions, but it's been getting drier and therefore better for them all day. The one thing they've had also very little of is experience of racing around here in the dark, and that's going to be the sting in the tail for this penultimate round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. David Addison and Hayley Coxon trackside, and it's going to be another superb race, no doubt about that, with the 37-strong grid then lining up, as I say, 10 different brands, which includes 2 McLaren MP412C GT3 cars, one of which did have a problem, in fact, in the qualifying session. It had a starter motor problem and stopped out on the circuit, but the good news is that car, driven by Adam Christodoulou, Klaus Hummel and Pierre Camphet, will start at the back of the grid. You can see there are 1 or 2 gaps still to be plugged. It might well be, in fact, the 1 or 2 teams were a bit late getting out of the pit lane, but will be on their way round to the grid, which is headed by Ferrari. But making its race debut this weekend, there is the impressive new Nissan, run by JR Motorsports, to be driven by David Brabham and Richard Westbrook. This car, with its 3.8-litre twin-turbo engine, weighs in at 1,300 kilos, 6-speed paddle shift gearbox, rear-wheel drive, and a mighty bit of kit. And you're looking at the future here in a sense of GT3 and Nissan, because the idea is, like McLaren are doing, to sell these cars on to customer teams for next year, and this is where it all starts. And although it's having its first ever race, that car, with Richard Westbrook and David Brabham, the 2 drivers behind the wheel, it's certainly a dark horse. Maybe not for a win, but I would have thought for a top 6 finish come the end. Number 64 there, a car that was quick early on in qualifying when Julien Piguet was driving it, and then on his second flying lap, having gone briefly quickest in Q1, he went off the road. The Frenchman, who is also these days a stuntman in movies, I'm afraid, went back to his old haunts. There he is, and looking a bit rueful about it, but Julien Piguet ploughed off into the gravel. But when he keeps out of the gravel, he's certainly a man to watch. Very quick driver indeed. You can see at the back of the grid, working its way forward there, the distinctive orange McLaren that's going to be started by Oliver Turvey. There he is behind the wheel as he works his way through a very crowded grid, lots of people there. And ahead of him, the McLaren engineer waving him forward and trying to shift everybody out of the way. So the car was late out of the pit lane, but it's on the grid. And this is the car which has had a complete rebuild after its mighty accident in the Spa 24 Hours. Andrew Cocotti, if you remember the race, had an accident early on when a back marker got in the way, and the car took 2 days to rebuild. And there it is on the grid, and it's going to go well in this race, no doubt. Jan Claret starting in the Hex's number 3 Aston Martin, lining up 14th on the grid. The Astons looked a little bit subdued, in fact, in qualifying, until Fred McIntyre got in the sister car, number 4, and worked that up the grid. And looking down onto the grid as well, there is a gap where 51 Ferrari should be, just ahead of the McLaren. The car to be started by Gino Forgione, but that, for the moment, I can't see on the grid. It may have just missed the pit lane closing time. So then the field lined up. As I say, it's Ferrari on pole position. Michael Bartels did the qualifying time, but Philippe Salaquada, having his first race in one of these Ferrari 458s, is going to start. Vita 4-1, running 3 cars this weekend. It's another big commitment for the team. And the championship now being headed by the Belgian driver Greg Franchi, having been paired with Timo Scheider and Matthias Ekström for the Spa 24 Hours, the car that ultimately won the race. That's helped him to win the championship, or lead the championship. Let's join Hayley on the grid.
Marcus, how have you found driving the BMW around this famous Magny-Cours circuit?
It's a great car. I drove it the first time here on the practice, and it was all wet, so today in the qualifying I got the first real run on the slicks, and I have to say that the first impression is pretty good. I still need to get used to it a little bit, but I'm sure it will be okay in the race.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Finnish driver Markus Paltala driving for Mark VDS Racing. There is the car in question, the BMW Z4. It ran at Spa in the 24 Hours, but Marcus there drove the Ford GT, so having his first race outing in this car. Just to go back to the championship, as I say, Greg Franchi being put into the same Audi at Spa as Timo Scheider and Matthias Ekström, won the race, also got the points that were awarded at the 12-hour mark, and that's why he now has this 14.5-point advantage in the championship. But two cars to look at the back, Ferrari and McLaren, and it's the number 60 McLaren you can see there that's going to be started by Klaus Hummel. It had this starter motor problem in qualifying that stopped it. Next to it, Julien Jus in the Ferrari. That had a transmission gremlin, and that car was stopped as well in the qualifying session. So two to watch, that's for sure. And that McLaren, very rapid when we had Adam Christodoulou at the wheel. Let's go back to the grid and join Haley with Paolo Roberti.
Paolo, I understand you've injured your hand in Spa. Do you think it's going to last for 3 hours?
Yeah, we tried to do our best. In Spa we have not been very lucky, but this race we start in third position. The car is not bad. We try to finish in top 3, I hope, but also top 5 will be a good result for us. The championship now is not so good for us. We try to finish and do a good race.
Thank you.
Yes, the point he makes about the championship is a valid one, because Paolo was the winner of the opening round at Monza, but he's now 24.5 points, along with his co-drivers Gianluca Roda and Raffaele Giammaria adrift in the championship. That's Linders then, getting strapped into the number 40 BMW that will line up on the second row of the grid. And the BMW certainly is going to be a front-running car. Whether it's got the reliability, it didn't have it at Spa, but we'll see over the course of 3 hours. Bert Langevin Audi, meantime, is on the front row of the grid, and the Belgian driver stands in front of the car and is about to be joined by Haley Coxon.
But certainly the place you want to be starting on the front row. How do you feel the car's going to perform here today?
I think we are in good shape. For sure, Stefan knows the track very well, and as we see, we are in second position, so I think we have a good chance. So, but it's still a long race, 3 hours. We are used to drive 24 hours the last race, but anyway, 3 hours is a long race, and we have to stay cool and quick. So hope we finish and we can be on the podium or in the first position. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Well, that car's going to be started by Stefan Ortelli, and it'll either be Bert or Philippe Albuquerque, the DTM Audi driver that gets in for the second stint, and then the remaining driver for the third. And Stefan Ortelli then, a former Le Mans 24-hour winner, Spa 24-hour winner, and it's going to be an interesting situation, I think, the first stint, because he will be going up alongside on that front row Philippe Salaquada, who will do the first stint in the pole-sitting Ferrari, but he didn't do the time in that car. It was a Michael Bartel's lap that put it onto pole position. Philippe Salaquada, much less experienced in GT, indeed in sports car racing terms, than is Stefan Ortelli, so no surprise if Stefan were to lead, although the Audis, to be fair, have looked a little bit undercooked this weekend. It was only towards the very end of qualifying that Stefan Ortelli got that car up onto the front row of the grid. Well, Michael Bartels did the pole position lap. Let's hear from him. There he is with Haley.
Michael, your first pole of the season, can you turn it into a win?
We hope. It's not going to be easy, of course. It's a long race, 3 hours. A lot of things can happen. So we have to work out a good race strategy to be in front of our competitors. So I will drive most probably the final stint, and I hope my two young teammates will do a good job. But for them, it's like a learning process. So, and we hope to be in the end at the checkered flag and then close to the podium. That's the goal.
And we're not quite used to seeing you in a red Ferrari.
Well, me either. I have to get used to the color. Sometimes I want to jump in the black and green car, so I had many troubles to find the red car in the box. But it's nice. The car is well balanced, well set up. I could put the car on pole position, which was, of course, a nice feeling for this year so far in GT3. So I think I'm still on my learning process in GT3. So now I have one victory, I have one pole position, and I keep on working.
Thank you.
Okay.
And of course, Michael, a vastly successful GT driver in recent times, the reigning GT1 world champion, 3 times an FIA GT champion as well. Philippe Salaquada then will start. There you can see the second row of the grid, the Porsche, going to be started by Gianluca Roda. The regular order for those drivers is that Roda starts, Raffaele Giammaria does the middle stint, Paolo Roberti brings it home, number 3 Aston Martin further back on the grid, Jan Claret to start, sharing the car with Pierre Bryce Mena and Julien Rodriguez. And the Aston Martin looking at the back of the McLaren. It's going to be fascinating to see how the McLarens get on in this race. The team will tell you quite legitimately that it's still part of the development process, the learning pattern, to make sure that any gremlins in the cars are ironed out before next year when the customer teams get them. But that's certainly not to suggest that the cars are here to make up the numbers and aren't going to be competitive. So that's probably going to be the better of the two, just given its grid position and the fact that 59 runs in the pro class, 3 pro drivers therefore, whereas the second car is in the pro-am category, and Klaus Hummel, who will start, isn't going to be as quick as his 2 co-drivers. He will, as I say, do that first stint, then they've got him out of the way, and then for the remainder of the race, Pierre Caffer and Adam Christodoulou can share that car and bring it up the order into contention. That's the view from Oliver Turvey's cockpit in the McLaren. There's the sister car sitting at the back of the grid, the number 60 McLaren, Klaus Hummel, to do the first stint. Just ahead of him, in fact, is the car that leads the GT4 Championship, the Nissan 370Z. Alex Buncombe to go first in this car that he shares with Jordan Tresson and Chris Ward. But that car has had 2 wins in the GT4 class over the course of the season, and therefore has now this 9-point advantage over Eduardo Piscopo, Greg Mansell and Leo Mansell, who are the next team in the points in GT4. And the Lotus, quick, but they've had some bad luck this year. So Oliver Turvey is ready to go in the McLaren, the grid now being cleared, and of course it will be a rolling start. So very shortly, we've got the 1 minute board being shown now. There it is. The last engineers, having fired up the cars, will leave the grid. The field will then be released behind the pace car, as it will be, and then 3 hours of racing, 2 mandatory stops will get underway. Now, the team's been quite cagey about how much of a factor fuel consumption is going to be in terms of whether they can go a full hour on a tank of fuel. If they can, no real problem. If they can't, and they need to think about a splash and dash at the end, then they're on the back foot, because there's no real splash and dash in this championship anymore. The regulations say that if a driver stays in the car, but they add fuel to the car, they refuel the car, he must undo his belts. So if there's a fire, he can leap out quite quickly. Well, therefore, you can't just fill it up with fuel and wave the car out. You lose a few more seconds tightening up the belts once again. So that can be a problem if teams need a last gasp splash of fuel like we saw at Monza. So there you can see the way the grid lines up, with Salaquadra and Ortelli on the front row, Gianluca Roda and Bas Leinders on row 2. Henri Moser shares the third row with Jack Gerber in the Ferrari, qualified by Matt Griffin. Row 4 is Ferrari and Audi, Ludovic Bede lining up alongside Andrea Piccini. And then on the 5th row of the grid, the number 1 Ferrari, that's going to be started by Frank Kekela, and alongside him should have been 51 Gino Foggioni, but that car was missing when we last looked at the grid. The field being released. So this final formation lap, and then 3 hours of racing, this penultimate round of the Blancpain Endurance Series to get underway. The Nissan GTR GT3 certainly is going to be a car to watch. That car, number 35, the distinctive dark blue Nissan, it's going to be started by Richard Westbrook, who of course drives like David Brabham. Nissan's in the GT1 World Championship, and proving ever more, if proof were needed, that he's not just a Porsche specialist, although he's made his name in Porsches, winning the Super Cup twice and the British Carrera Cup twice as well. And we don't just have GT3 and GT4 classes to think about, because within GT3 you've got the Pro Cup, the Pro-Am Cup, there is the Gentleman Trophy, and also there is the Cup class for the older type of Porsche. Lamborghini represented here by the Rhinos Leipert Motorsport team. You're looking at the car that's going to be started by Lorenzo de Vega. What we don't have this weekend are the familiar Reiter engineering cars. The Blancpain liveried car of Mark Hayek, the company's CEO, not here because Mark himself is not very well, so that entry had to be scratched. And the sister car of Albert von Thurn Taxis and Nicolas Meyer-Melhoff, also absent after its monster accident when it crashed coming into the pit lane, ludicrously, at the Spa 24 Hours. There's some interesting YouTube footage that shows what Meyer-Melhoff did wrong coming into the bus stop, and the incident carried on into the pit lane, but the damage was such that that's another car absent this weekend. But you still have Lamborghinis, and there, 45 is going to be driven by Fabien Giras, and that'll be a quick car because Fabien is a hugely experienced driver. He will start, in fact, in the car that he shares with Andrea Barleti, the Belgian driver, and Frédéric Fatien. McLaren, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Porsche, all the top brands represented, and that Lamborghini new to the championship this weekend. That's the car that Julien Piguet shares with Cedric Lima. Piguet is the quicker of the two drivers, although Cedric himself has had wins this year with Eugenio Amos in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. So he knows what he's doing, and that could be another car, I think, to keep an eye to as 3 hours of racing unwinds. So the race due to get underway at the end of this lap, assuming the race director is happy. It will go until 9:15 French time, and with the 2 mandatory stops, we're going to have drama in the pits, that's for sure. Anything on top of that means people have got dramas and have to come in with problems. And although it's sunny now, of course, it's going to race into the darkness. So as the field works its way through the twisty infield part of this lap, it's a great circuit, Magny-Cours. It's rather unfairly knocked for being in the middle of nowhere. Well, it is a little bit isolated, but it's a very good circuit. It's not a Tilke design circuit, and what you have here is a good mix of fast elements to the circuit, both fast straights, fast corners, 1 or 2 slow bits. You've got the chicane at the end of the lap, which is a little bit fiddly these days, but it does look quite dramatic as the cars launch themselves over the curbs, and that is the part of the circuit they are about to come down to now, because they come through turn 14, that left-hand kink, and then down towards the Complexe du Lycée, So you've got turn 15, the right-hander, then the little chicane, and this time around, the safety car, the pace car as it is at the moment, will peel for the pit lane. The field will turn out of the chicane. We're about to go racing then. Philippe Salaquada in the red. Vita 4-1 takes some getting used to. Ferrari on pole position. Alongside in them is Stefano Ortelli. The race gets underway now then as the cars accelerate up towards the line. On the inside for the first corner is going to be Salaquada. Can he hang on to the race lead then as the cars go down towards turn 1? The answer is just about yes on the inside line, but Stefano Ortelli tries to go with him as the field surges through the first turn out of the Grand Courbe, then down for the first time towards Estoril. One of the Porsches going just a little bit wide there. Also, Fabian Giro gets hung out to dry a little bit in the Gulf-liveried Lamborghini, but as the cars accelerate then for the first time up towards the Adelaide hairpin, the race underway with Cedric Lyman looking for a way past the white Porsche, number 80 of Eric Clement, and you're riding now in number 40 with Bas Linders. Battle's going on ahead of him, but it's Salaquada who's managed to hang on to the race lead, pursued by Ortelli, and then a good start by Gianluca Roda up into third place, keeping at bay the BMW in the hands then of Bas Linders. You're on board with him now, as you can see up front the Porsche looking for a way round the Audi, and he's almost done it. Yes, he has done it now. Gianluca Roda is level, but he has to back out of it, going up towards the chicane. Ortelli runs a bit deep then, goes over the curb, but he manages to hang on to it, out of all of which Gianluca Roda gets compromised, and now he's easy prey to Bas Linders, who ducks up the inside, gets level, and goes through for third place. It was nearly a place gained by the Porsche. In the end, it's a place lost. And while they've been tripping over themselves like that, Philippe Salaquada has just been able to build up a couple of lengths lead as the cars work their way then now through the chicane at Imola up towards Chateau d'Eau for the first time. So Salaquada for Ferrari, Ortelli for Audi, up into third place, the BMW of Marcus Paltela, Bas Linders at the wheel, the Corrie shares with Paltela and Maxime Martin, and Gianluca Roda fourth, just then ahead of the best of the Aston Martins with Henri Moser at the wheel. On board then now with Bas Linders. Third as he comes up towards the end of lap 1, and there is number 33 Audi, started by Andrea Piccini, battling with the number 20 Ferrari of Ludovic Badet that very nearly makes contact with him, bouncing his way over the curve up towards the end of the lap. The leaders go through, and at the end of lap 1, Salaquada it is leading, only just though. Diving down towards turn 1, traffic a real issue around here, although it's a reasonably length lap. Still, with so many cars, trying to find a gap in the traffic, whether it's in qualifying or whether it's in the race, is not easy. So traffic management important all the way through the weekend. The number 50, Jack Gerber, Ferrari, about to go backwards as the number 3, Aston Martin, looks for a way by. Jan Claret is level with him and he's about to go past as they come up towards the Adelaide hairpin. So this great fight continues between Andrea Piccini on the inside, Ludovic Badet alongside him, and there in 38, just clipping the curb a little bit, going up towards the Adelaide hairpin, and then running out wide. That's the Scuderia Vittoria Ferrari. The first stint being taken, as is the regular pattern in that car, by Giacomo Petrobelli. Now 33, Andrea Piccini in the second of the WRT out. He's coming under huge pressure here, look. Right on his tail is Ludovic Badet, the pair of them absolutely tied together, and Andrea Piccini here having to work very hard indeed to keep at bay the Ferrari. So the race leaders working their way on lap 2 up towards the Chateau d'Eau element of the circuit. Philippe Salaquada led at the end of lap 1 by just 1.4 seconds, with Stefano Ortelli chasing after him. Third over the line, the number 40 BMW in the hands of Bas Linders. Fourth was the Porsche of Gianluca Roda. And now number 3, Henri Moser, has got Petrobelli right up behind him. Giacomo Petrobelli gets better and better, race by race. Having moved into this series this year, he's done quite a bit of GT racing in the past, and he goes well. Meantime, Piccini still coming under pressure. Ludovic Badet having another look as they come down towards the Complex de Lycée through the chicane. Up over the timing line in a moment. The leaders go through, and the gap is coming down now. Salaquada is being caught by Stefano Ortelli. The gap is just 0.9 of a second as they go through. The McLaren's also trying to work their way into contention. Oliver Turvey now up into 17th place, and from the back of the grid, Klaus Hummel is also trying to work his way into contention. 26 that car is now. Field turning its way then up towards the Adelaide hairpin, and Philippe Salaquada is not just being caught here by Stefano Ortelli, but also Ortelli is being caught by Bas Linders, who briefly had done the best first sector of anybody. That's just been eclipsed by the number 3 Aston Martin of Jan Claret. So that's how the top 6 looks: Ferrari, Audi, BMW, Porsche, Aston Martin and Audi. Good Lamborghini battle making contact. In fact, there we have the 2 Lambos side by side going into the hairpin, and you can see that one of them, it might well be Cedric Lyman's car, got biffed out wide. Contact between the Lamborghini there you're looking at and Fabian Giro's car. So that means another shuffle in the order and another place gained for, amongst others, Oliver Turvey in the 59 McLaren. The infield of the Magny-Cours circuit can be pretty fiddly at times, and it caught out at the hairpin, those two Lamborghinis. So, up front, Salaquadra it is leading the way. Ortelli getting a little bit closer. And it's confirmation that it was indeed Cedric Lima and Fabien Girard that made contact then at the Adelaide hairpin. Girard has survived, but I think Cedric Lima's car suffered a bit more in that impact. He's dropped down the order. Number 2 Ferrari, Nick Homerson at the wheel, looking for a way to try to get now past the number 18 Porsche ahead. Alessandro Bonetti at the wheels. And that is a battle for class position. Now there's number 20, Ludovic Bardet, 7th at the moment. Piccini ahead of him is the real target at the moment. And you're riding with a man that's in 3rd place, Bas Linders, who is about to go 2nd, I think, because he's level with Stefan Ortelli as they head up towards the Adelaide hairpin. Ortelli, though, claims the inside line. The BMW on the outside is not going to be able to go all the way around the outside, or is he? He's going to try. Linders almost runs out of road, has to back out of that and slot back in behind. Great lead battle then going on at the moment. Bas Linders down in 3rd place and looking for a way to try and find a way past Ortelli, as Stefan Ortelli in the meantime wants to get past Philippe Salaquadra, who for Vita 4-1 is hanging on in there. The 3rd driver of the car, along with Michael Bartels, is Martin Matschke, who has done quite a bit of GT3 racing in the past, but he's new to the team and new to the car. So there's quite a lot resting on the shoulders of Bartels here to try to get that into a winning position when he gets behind the wheel for that last stint. As now Ortelli challenges coming up towards Chateau d'Eau, can't find a way through, but he needs to get past the Ferrari. If he can be released, he might just be able to get away from the BMW as well. So it's getting to the pressure time now for Stefan Ortelli. Vastly experienced sports car racer, but Salaquadra defends, coming down towards the Elysée chicane. Ortelli needs a good exit here to try to get himself alongside the Ferrari coming over the line, leaping over the curb then. Bas Linders in 3rd place, the 3 leaders go through, heading down towards turn 1 then. So Ferrari 458 leads Audi R8, leads BMW Z4, and you can see the way these 3 now breaking away from everybody else. The gap widening between the top 3. 4th place now, Gianluca Roda in the Porsche. Henri Moser is 5th in the Aston Martin. And Andrea Piccini runs 6th in the 2nd of the WRT Audis. Once again, side by side for 2nd place, coming up towards the Adelaide hairpin. And again, Bas Linders is denied, but he wants to try and get the switch back up the inside, coming out of the corner. Can he do it? No, he can't, because the Audi has good drive out of the corner, of course, and stays ahead. The number 64 Lamborghini is just, I think, rather slowly headed down the pit lane. Meantime, Bas Linders is having to work overtime here, not just to get past, but for the moment, he's had to stay with Ortelli, who gets held up a bit by Salaquadra and goes wide. Out of turn 8. Great shots these from on board the BMW, and Bas Linders then trying to stay on the back of Ortelli. Stefan Ortelli looking for a way past Philippe Salaquadra, who, to be fair to him, is doing a very good job indeed of hanging onto that race lead. Nowhere near as experienced a sports car racer as Ortelli, who again levels with him on the outside, coming up towards Chateau d'Eau. Gets hung out to dry though. Can't go round the outside, leaves the door open, and here comes Bas Linders now to try and get alongside the Audi, but again he is denied. Superb battle. 3 for the lead as they come down towards the end of the lap. This is the end of lap 5. Ferrari, Audi, BMW as one. Linders again leaps over the curb. The 3 leading cars go over the line. The gap between the top 2 is now just 0.2 of a second. And Philippe Salaquadra, with his wide elbows, is keeping that car in the lead. Stefan Ortelli right up behind him as the cars work their way now through Estoril. That long, long right hander that brings them onto the very fast section of the circuit up to the tight Adelaide hairpin. Bas Linders having so far done the best lap of the race in his pursuit of the top 2, and he's right there with them again, but he's not quite close enough to get level with Ortelli as he has done in previous laps. Salaquadra defending. Stefan Ortelli goes for the inside, can't do it. Has a long, long look, but when it comes to the turning point for the corner, Salaquadra claims the line. Ortelli tries to get the drive out of the corner. He's almost level, but again, the Ferrari just hangs on in there. Philippe Salaquadra being pretty impressive here. Began as a kart racer, aged 11. First car racing in the Ford Puma Cup. Went on to race in the Skoda Octavia Cup round the outside of Ortelli. Tries to go Bas Linders. Ortelli then tries to get a gap against the race leader. Fantastic stuff, this. Linders can't get past Ortelli, and try as he might, Stefan cannot dislodge Philippe Salaquada. Who's going to crack first? Which place is going to change? The lead or second? Linders wants it to be second. He desperately wants to get past the Audi, see whether he can have better fortune getting past the Ferrari again. Stefan Ortelli tries the outside line. Linders tries to nip up the inside. Can they go 3 wide? Not quite, but Ortelli is alongside Salaquada now down to turn 14. Again, Philippe Salaquada hangs onto the place. The Czech driver cuts across, hugs the inside line down towards the Lycée chicane. Linders tries one side and then the other to get past Ortelli. Fantastic racing this, out of the chicane. Salaquada with no gap to speak of, but he still leads the race. Ortelli right up behind him. Linders third in the BMW. Again, Stefan has a look tentatively on the inside, going down towards Blancpain, then thinks better of it, conscious that if he leaves the door open or if he tries something which doesn't work, Linders will try and be up and past him as well. Who's going to be the real mover this time up to the Adelaide hairpin? Is it going to be Ortelli for the lead or Linders for second place? You're on board with the BMW. That's Linders at the wheel of the car. Stefan Ortelli ahead, getting away just slightly in a straight line, so Linders not able to challenge coming into the hairpin. And more for that matter, can Ortelli challenge Salaquada there? On board in the BMW now, and Philippe Salaquada this time has just been able to pull away by a length or two. Done a personal best, in fact, this time in the first sector of the lap. Ortelli closing right up again, under braking for turn 8, tries the inside now. This time he might just about get level coming out of the corner. Oh no, he won't. Salaquada has got other ideas then. I would imagine that Mikhail Bartels is being pretty impressed by this. Philippe Salaquada having his first outing in the car, going very well indeed. And the Belgian Audi Club, the WRT team, looking on to see what Ortelli can do about it. Now he tends to try the outside line coming up towards Chateau d'Eau. Not quite near enough this time, and he's a bit busy defending from Bas Linders as well. Heading down towards the end of the lap, headlights on from Ortelli. That's not going to do him much good in his defence of Bas Linders though, but Stefan Ortelli on this lap at least having to concentrate a little bit more on what's going on behind him now and defend from the Mark VDS Racing Team BMW that again leaps over the curb. Salaquada goes through 0.4 of a second ahead now, that's all. There's a report also that we have of some smoke coming out of number 10, which is the Jérôme Ponicon started Ferrari. And that car is falling now into 16th place. Race leaders making the run towards the Adelaide hairpin. Bas Linders has fallen away this time, so Ortelli tries to make a move up on the inside, and once again he's not quite near enough when he has to turn into the corner. In GT4 it is the Mansell Episcopo Lotus ahead of the Nissan, and third in the class the number 61 Lotus in the hands of Lawrence Frey. Rolf Maritz and Freddie Barber, car that won in fact at Navarra in the last sprint race, you could call these, the 3 hours compared to the 24 hours of Spa. One more Blancpain Endurance Series race, Silverstone, October still to come. And Stefan Ortelli again almost pushing the Ferrari out of turn 8. Now Philippe Salaquada hanging on to this race lead, a man with lots of single-seater experience, precious little GT experience, and he's up against one of the old pros as again Ortelli tries the outside line. Once again it doesn't pay off for him. Can he duck up the inside coming out of the corner? That's the aim. Bas Linders perhaps just lagging back this time to see what develops ahead of him. Mikhail Bartels, rather stony face there, waiting to see what develops as now Ortelli makes his move, and finally he's done it. Up the inside, and Salaquada fights back. Fantastic, he's level, he's got the lead back again. Brilliant stuff. Really opportunistic, and it's paid off. Philippe Salaquada leads again at the end of the lap. Ortelli behind him. 1 or 2 approving nods in the Vita 4-1 camp. Philippe Salaquada rising to the occasion here, absolutely. Stefan Ortelli, 1 up and 1 back. Goes back down to second place, and Bas Linders thinking, okay, let's see what I can do about all this now. The 3 race leaders then on lap 9, and there are still 2 hours and 3/4 to go. It's not a 10-lap sprint this, far from it. It's meant to be an endurance race, and Ortelli having another look up the inside, hoping against hope that Salaquada will just get out of his way. Well, Stefan Ortelli is having to work incredibly hard for this. Now, while these 3 are battling, 4th is Gianluca Roda, who is on the same sort of pace, so he's not really getting any closer to them. Through the chicane, Bas Linders then hanging on to third place. Philippe Salaquada leads the way, but is he going to hang on to it? Yes, he does. Ortelli goes wide. This is Linder's chance for second place, but it doesn't pay off. It's still the Vita 4-1 Ferrari in the lead. Somehow, he lost it for a corner, but Philippe Salaquada is doing an absolutely ripper job up front. He leads the way with much more experienced GT racers behind him. All of this must be impressing Michael Bartels, the team boss. Let's find out. He's with Haley in the pit lane.
Michael Stefan has been putting pressure on Philippe. Can he hold on to the position?
So in the moment it's really exciting race. So Philip is doing really a good job because it's his first steps in serious GT racing. So he has two very experienced drivers behind him with Ortelli and Linders. So he's trying to defend his position. It will be not easy, I think, with the pressure.
Thank you.
And while we're hearing from Michael Bartels, you've seen what's happened for second place. Bas Linders then has gone through ahead of the Audi, which tried to get the race lead, ran out of road down at turn 15, and now they've got one of the Lotuses to dodge past. Now we're in the traffic, and Salaquada gets held up just a little bit there. Here comes Bas Linders up the inside. He's going to make short work out of the Ferrari potentially because Salaquada was impeded, and Linders looks across saying, right, now it's my turn. No, it's not. Salaquada fights back. Superb stuff. And Ortelli tries to make it 3 wide up the inside. That doesn't work. Linders leads. Ortelli tries to get up the inside, and there's contact. The Ferrari gets knocked sideways, and Ortelli's front bodywork flies up in his face. That was all self-induced from Stefan Ortelli, and that's going to be a pit stop for sure. He can't see where he's going. He might just be able to see through the underneath of that. Yes, he could probably see a little bit, just given the shape of that front bodywork, but he's going to have to head for the pit lane, and he's off the road now. Ortelli struggling for visibility. Well, that goes to underline the point about the risks of treating this like a 10-lap sprint. Ortelli, you can see now how much he's struggling. He's losing heaps of time to the leaders. I wonder whether the Ferrari suffered any damage in all of that. Relatively speaking, it has got away lightly. You can just about see where he's going. There's also smoke coming from the front right corner, so you've got tyre rubbing against bodywork. So even whether he can or can't see, they're going to have to pit him to make sure that bodywork is secure. And you've got this tyre now fouling against the bodywork. So Stefan Ortelli, after that rather audacious move up the inside, has rather cost himself and the team a chance of being in that leading group, at least in the foreseeable future. So, after all that, time for a deep breath. It is Bas Linders then who leads the way for Mark VDS Racing, and Stefan Ortelli, gosh, what a surprise, heads down the pit lane. Gaffer tape needed here, I think. We've also had a change behind because Ludovic Badet now is up past Gianluca Roda, so that's going to be not just fourth, but now third, as Stefan Ortelli comes into the pit lane. And as he brakes, down drops the bodywork. Now that's going to need securing. Now they will refuel the car. They will automatically do that because if the car's in the pits, it makes sense to refuel it, and no other work can be done while it is a refueling situation. There are always 2-part pit stops in the Blancpain Endurance Series, so once the refueling is done, then they can do other things to the car, but it won't be immediate. But they're going to have to somehow secure that bodywork, and while they're losing time like this, of course, the real key now is whether the number 32 Audi can even stay on the lead lap. Flying laps at the moment around the 1:41 mark, so it could be that that car drops a lap down. The real urgency is to get that car on the lead lap back out of the pits, but that gaffer tape has got to hold for another, what, 2 hours and 41 minutes, which is not going to be easy. So, race order, BMW, Bas Linders leads Ferrari, Philippe Salaquada leads Ferrari, Ludovic Badet leads Porsche, Gianluca Roda, Aston Martin, Henri Moser, Ferrari, Giacomo Petrovelli. And having held a watching brief, to coin a phrase, now Bas Linders finds himself in the lead of the race, and now is he going to be able to get away from Philippe Salaquada? Well, in the first sector of the lap, the answer is no. In the second sector, the answer is no. Salaquada is coming back at the Belgian driver. And while all this is going on, the championship leader, Greg Franchi's car, with Andrea Piccini at the wheel, is just creeping up into 7th place. The leaders go across the line. The gap is a 1.5 seconds. And there you can see the damage also to the Audi, where the bodywork flew up, smashed the windscreen. So that's going to be okay for now, but I would imagine as the sum drops, that's going to become a real problem. If the light hits that damaged windscreen, it's going to become a drama, perhaps not for Stefan Ortelli, but for whoever does the second stint in that car. Number 64 Lamborghini, incidentally, we saw making contact with Fabien Girard earlier on, has retired in the pit lane. It limped in and has expired after its damage in the pit lane. So very disappointing because that was a quick car in qualifying. Ortelli then back into the race, but the car falling further and further and further down the order now. and is going to be a lap down potentially as a consequence of that lengthy pit stop. So there's 33, which is now 7th. That's the sister car going out of the Adelaide hairpin. Another bit of bodywork drops off a car there, you saw. But Stefano Ortelli then now a lap back. It's not the first time they've had to come back from problems this year. Monza and punctures leaps to mind. But now Stefano Ortelli, having made that, as I say, audacious move that didn't pay off. There was contact between him and Salaquara, but it certainly cost the Audi dearest of all. So after all that frenetic battling for the race lead, where's the next squabble going to come from of note? Well, there's Gianluca Roda's Porsche. Well, let's find out what Felipe Albuquerque thinks about all of that, having watched his car have problems. He's in the pit lane with Haley Coxon.
Felipe, such a great start for Stefan, and what a disappointment. How much time do you think he's going to have lost?
2 minutes minimum. Yeah, it's a shame now. It's pretty much over, but we need to push, me and Bert and Stefan also, and do the minimum as possible, the damage. But now it's hard to get back to the lead and to get ahead of the other WRT car. But it is what it is.
Thank you.
So damage limitation effectively for the Ortelli, Longchamp, Albuquerque squadders there. You can see Audi versus Ferrari battling. That's number 1 Frank Heckler trying to find a way past Andrea Piccini. Heckler having had a win at Navarra with Nico Verdonk and with Michael Bartels, and he's about to make the move up on the inside. This should give him 7th place. Yes, it does. Briefly, because Piccini stands his ground on the outside, and the two of them are still absolutely level, heading now up towards the Adelaide hairpin. The two of them together as they make their way towards the braking zone. On the inside line is Frank Heckler, but he can't take the place. Good defensive job that by Piccini. Stood his ground on the outside all the way round Estoril and then all the way up to the Adelaide hairpin, and he has managed to keep the Audi ahead. And they're both coming under pressure now from the Aston Martin of Jan Claret. As again, Frank Heckler, the young German driver, very impressive driver in GT cars. Frank Heckler adapting this year from GT1 to GT3 machinery, looks for a way past Piccini. Andrea, also a massively experienced driver, so you've got to get up early in the morning to find a way past the Italian. You're on board with Jan Claret, 9th at the moment in the Hexis AMR Aston Martin DBRS9, a car that runs in the Pro Cup. Piccini then runs 7th, Heckler 8th, Claret 9th as they work their way now through the chicane, and behind them in the top 10 is a remarkable effort now, because it is the Ferrari that started last on the grid. Julien Juste, number 10, is into 10th place from 35th of the cars that started the race. Car 10 you're looking at, which is Julien Juste then, and the next target just up the road is Jan Claret. Well, the way that Julien Juste has been going suggests that he's going to be able to catch the Aston and get right onto the tail in this lap now, and then start to challenge for position once more. Now, car number 10 you're looking at is still a little bit smoky towards the back. There was a report about that earlier on, and it's still there on that left rear corner. It's not affecting its pace much, though. Still a very rapid car, but certainly when the car starts to put the weight on that left-hand rear side, then the smoke is evident once again. In the meantime there, you've got Gianluca Roda battling his way through traffic in the Porsche. And number 4 Aston Martin is Henri Moser, who has now been caught by Andrea Piccini. So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th are all bunching up. The nature of this circuit lending itself to close racing in this event, isn't it? And now that the back markers are starting to get involved as well, it gets ever more frenetic for them. Gianluca Roda nips up the inside of the Lotus there, which is the Eduardo Piscopo started Lotus that currently is leading GT4 ahead of the Nissan. Much flashing of headlights there from the Ludovic Badet Ferrari. Gianluca Roda then is in 4th place, Badet 3rd at the moment in the Ferrari, who's just worked his way through traffic. But at this stage of the race, everybody having to encounter back markers at some point. On some laps they'll help, on some laps they'll hinder. But the traffic is going to play a part in this race, no argument about it. Julien Juste working his way past the Nissan in the hands of Alex Buncombe for the first stint. Just look how busy it is now coming down towards the final corner. Through turn 15 they come. Now Ludovic Badet right on the tail here of Jan Claret in the Aston Martin. Henri Moser, number 4, booms past the pit lane now, currently in 6th spot. And we're also getting news about number 18 Porsche having had a spin and stopping out on the circuit. Hopefully that's going to be able to rejoin That marker trying to get out of the way as this gaggle of cars comes pouring past. It's still BMW leading the way then. Ferrari second, third and fourth. Porsche fifth, Aston Martin sixth. And now Jan Claret looks for a way past Frank Kekler here. Kekler was attacking a couple of laps ago. Now he's having to defend once more. He's on the inside there in the traditional Vitaphone colours, carried this year by Vita 4-1. Same team, different name. And there is the Porsche that has spun and is still going nowhere. Door open. That's the car of Alessandro Bonetti and Gianluca De Lorenzi, and that is going nowhere for the moment, and we're going to get the safety car while that is moved out of the way. So the safety car is being deployed, and that's going to bunch everybody up. So car number 18 spins. You've seen where it is in a dangerous place, and there's no real opportunity there for the marshals to get to that. So the safety car boards are shown, the yellow flags are displayed, and it's to retrieve that car, which now, of course, that the safety car is deployed, starts to move. It's always the way, isn't it? So the race director groans to think, great, thanks, mate. And some of the teams groan as well, thinking, well, this is going to be, in a sense, a wasted safety car period. There it is. It's been scrambled. It joins the circuit. And all of that is on lap 16 for the race leader. Bas Linders comes through, picked up by the safety car now going down towards the long right-hand of turn 3 of Estoril. And the pace of the race goes quiet for a second or two as everybody gets themselves behind the safety car. Now, is anybody going to be bold and take this opportunity to put some fuel in the car while the pace of the race is slowed? I doubt it, because I wouldn't have thought this will be a very long safety car period. It may be a lap, if that, in fact, just a lap, because if that Porsche, as we saw, is mobile and can drive itself out of harm's way, then we should be able to go green at the end of this lap. Having said that, we have got a car in the pit lane. It's one of the McLarens that's just come in. It's Oliver Turvey's car, 59 out of 15th place, and that's for fuel. So get a bit of fuel into the car while the pace of the race is slower like this. There it is. And are they going to do a driver change as well? Conceivably, yes. Alvaro Parent, I think it will be, that will take that car over. I think Andrew Coccodi, I can see on the pit wall from where we are here. So it looks like Alvaro Parent will take over the second stint in that car. As I say, McLaren still looking at this as a development exercise, but it's a competitive car and every lap is more relevant to them. So they fueled it, they put a new driver in, new tyres as well going onto that car. And again, the question is, can that have its stop completed to keep the car on the lead lap? Number 18 has rejoined, so the circuit is going to be clear. It is indeed that. Alvaro Parent has got on board. Oliver Turvey helping to strap him in. Door closes, and when the signal is given, Alvaro Parent can fire up the engine, leave the pit lane. But the pit stop continues here with just the two mechanics to do the tyre changes. And I'm looking to see where the safety car is. It's coming down towards the last corner. But is the McLaren going to be able to stay on this lead lap? The answer, I think, is going to be yes. There's the safety car with the queue behind. So, of course, here, Philippe Salaquada has caught up, but also they have both been caught now, the two leading cars, by Ludovic Badet, running third in the number 20 Ferrari. McLaren a bit reluctant to get going here. And Alvaro Parent talking to the team on the radio, I think. And is it going to fire up? Number 18 Porsche has come slowly down the pit lane, but Alvaro Parent looks like he's got a problem, and maybe the car will not fire up. The safety car's going to be in at the end of this lap, so now that McLaren is going to go a lap down. And number 40, Bas Linders, is about to go racing. Then he will lead the way back to green flag conditions. 2.5 hours remain. The BMW leads the way. Green flag shown. We're in business once again. A very good restart from Bas Linders. Look at the gap he's pulled over Salaquada as they go over the line. Philippe Salaquada is going to have to defend here, I think, from Ludovic Badet as they go by. And once again, Frank Kekler looking for a way to try to move himself past Andrea Piccini, but it doesn't pay off for him. And there, look, being rather badly held up in traffic was Henri Moser. Jan Claret is still coming under pressure from Julien Juste, the pair of them on the tail of Frank Kekler. We've had some superb racing so far, and it's going to rage on, isn't it? Up they come towards the first split. There you've got them, the BMW leading the way, Ferrari's second and third, but now number 20 Ludovic Badet is looking to try to gain a place. And what about number 9 Porsche there? Gianluca Roda is trying to fend off Piccini, who's got himself up past now Henri Moser. The number 4 Aston has dropped ground, and in the traffic here there's a real old scrum of cars, everybody bunched up on the restart. Now, has the number 9 Porsche sustained a little bit of damage? Let's just see as they come out of the chicane. Gianluca Roda down in 5th place at the moment, squabbling with Petrobelli. Look at Julien Juste as well there in the Ferrari, looking to gain a place. Gianluca Roda desperately keen to try to get himself back ahead here of Giacomo Petrobelli, because he's got Piccini now up into 6th place, bearing down on him. Roda is level, here they come, the two of them together. The front of the Porsche looking a bit battle-scarred, but he's gained a place. Back up into now 4th place goes Gianluca Roda, and then he runs wide. Does he just keep the place? Yes, he does, coming out of the corner there, but right with him, heading up towards Chateau d'Eau, is Giacomo Petrobelli once again, and a car has gone off into the gravel at the very end of the lap. It's number 36 then, the Porsche that runs in the Cup class. Marco Cassara at the wheel, and there it is, and that is near, thankfully, a safety, snatch vehicle point, so it hopefully is going to be able to be dragged out of the way without another safety car being needed here. Leaders go through, and now Bas Linders leading by 2 seconds. Salaquada is second over the line, Ludovic Badet is third, and here back up to 4th is Gianluca Roda. 5th behind him is Petrobelli, 6th is Piccini, 7th is Kekler now, 8th is Jan Claret, so he's gained a place. 9th is Julien Juste, place he's gained, and Henri Moser is down to 10th. He was the one that really lost out as they were coming out of the hairpin on that previous lap. Ran wide, lots of people scrabbled by, and now Andrea Piccini starting to go better, just like we saw at Monza at the start of the season. This is an Audi that seems to get faster and faster as the race wears on. Fuel load coming down on that car, of course, and he now makes the move on the inside, and he's going to go through, is he? Yes, just about. Under braking, he's done it. Goes past Petrobelli, and Frank Kekler there in the turquoise and black Ferrari, also looking for a way by. Kekler wanting to try to get himself through. Is it going to pay off? He's got right with him Jan Claret. The two of them are together, but Jan Claret goes back ahead. Absolutely wonderful racing we've had in the first 40 minutes of this race. Big lock up there. That's Claret drifting out way, way wide. Kekler is alongside him, but can the Ferrari get up alongside him? He can't. Jan Claret hangs onto the place. Jan Claret then, having gained 7th on this lap, he's doing his best to lose the position, but Frank Kekler has not yet been able to totally unsettle him. Won't have done Jan Claret's tyres much good, that big lock-up, but he's managed to hang on to the place. The Michelin-shod Aston Martin now trying to attack Giacomo Petrobelli. And Frank Kekler under pressure from Julien Juste now. You're on board with Claret. The Aston Martin blasting its way down towards the completion of the lap. But again, while you've got this long train of cars battling, it's playing into the hands of the 3 leaders, because Linders, Salaquada and Ludovic Badet are getting away now. Gianluca Roda trying to escape in 4th place, Piccini going through 5th, but the gap now between the cars that are 3rd and 4th, 7 seconds. And the gap between 1st and 4th, between the leading BMW and the 4th place Porsche, 10 seconds. So that gap is widening all the while. Gianluca Roda needing some good laps now to bring that car back into contention, but you rule out the Orlando Sport Porsche at your peril. Now Jan Claret trying to make his move on the inside here. Is he going to be able to go through ahead of Giacomo Petrobelli? Up towards the Adelaide hairpin they come. You're looking at the way things stand in the Pro Cup at the moment. Kekler on the inside as well, trying to follow the Aston Martin through. And Julien Juste trying to go around the outside of the ball. Petrobelli is the one going backwards. Jan Claret gaining ground. Julien Juste has gone ahead of Frank Kekler now. And all this for Juste from the very back of the grid. Fantastic performance. There it is. The Sofre Motorsport Promotion Ferrari doing a tremendous job in the hands of Julien Juste, despite that bit of smoke we've seen. Next target is the Jan Claret Aston Martin. What a battle. Frank Kekler then, having tried to gain places, has lost out. Ludovic Badet leading in Pro-Am at the moment from Nick Homerson. Badet 3rd overall, Nick Homerson is in 11th overall. He's just coming into the picture in the background, in fact, in the 2nd of the turquoise and black Ferraris, Nick Homerson, working his way through traffic up on the inside. Now, Gianluca Roda's 4th place. He's under real jeopardy now because Andrea Piccini has come up onto the tail of him. There's Henri Moser fighting back. He's got himself now past Petrobelli. Giacomo Petrobelli was 6th at the start of the lap. He's lost loads of ground on this 19th lap of the race. The leaders go through. Now this is the fight going on for 2nd and 3rd places. There are battles everywhere. So you've got one for 2nd, you've got one going on for 4th place as well. But Philippe Salaquada, remember, who did that excellent job of leading earlier on, is now coming under big, big pressure from Ludovic Badet, who understands Ferrari 458 a little more than Philippe does. He's been racing them all year. The two of them nose to tail as they make their way up now towards the Adelaide hairpin. Ludovic Badet in there, the Sofrev car, number 20. former French Formula Renault racer, Formula Renault Euro Cup front runner as well, sharing that car with Franck Morel and the very experienced, if not as quick as Ludovic Badet, Jean-Luc Bobelic. So a lot of the work here has to be done by Ludovic Badet. He's the real gun in that car. He has got to drag it into contention. And it looks as though he's being held up rather by Philippe Salaquada at the moment, which is bad news for the French driver. Salaquada then hangs onto his place. Those two nose to tail then. The Czech driver Philippe Salaquada makes his way through the chicane up towards Chateau d'Eau, out of Imola up towards the right-hander. And while they're battling now, whilst Salaquada is having to defend, so Bas Linders is getting away. 3.5 seconds was the advantage last time through that the BMW had built up. Now there, Giacomo Petrobelli down in 10th, behind him 11th is Nick Homerson. And then, in the Gulf liveried Lamborghini, is the redoubtable Fabien Girard coming into the picture now as well, closing up under braking there, going up towards the Chateau d'Eau part of the circuit. And Fabien Girard now into his 50s, always a competitive driver. There you can see Julien Jousse gain 6th at the expense now of Yann Claret. So from the back of the grid, up now into the top 6. It's a wonderful drive this by Julien Jousse. How far up the order can he realistically get that car? And remember that that runs in the Pro Cup, so he's got two quick co-drivers in the shape of Patrice Guélard and Jérôme Policante. It's just assuming it's going to be reliable, it's going to be competitive all race. Fabien Girard goes through, then up into 11th spot now at the expense of Petrobelli. Has Giacomo got a problem in the Scuderia Vittoria car? He's dropping down and down the order. And now, look, going through on the inside is 32, Stéphane Ortelli. But discount Stéphane, for the moment at least, because he's a lap back. He's 21st overall, but he has to try somehow to get back a lap. With that car running out of sequence now, having refueled earlier, he could possibly do that late in the race. Now there, off the road, has spun the McLaren. That looks like the number 60 car that Klaus Hummel started from the back of the grid. Yes, it is. Can the McLaren get going once again? It's been a rather checkered day for poor old Klaus. The car stopped on him with this starter motor issue in Q2. 3-part qualifying in this Blancpain Endurance Series. Now, what can Fabien Girard here do about Nick Homerson ahead of him? The last lap that Girard did was a 46. Homerson did a 45.5. And the Nissan there, you can see, number 35 is in 14th place and about to become 13th, I dare suggest. Richard Westbrook now on the tail of Petrobelli. There you can see the McLaren looking a little bit forlorn by the side of the road, and that's losing laps and it's losing places all the while as everyone else comes streaming past. So number 3, the Aston Martin of Yann Claret here, keeping Frank Kechler at bay. This Vita 4-1 Ferrari has not looked as strong as the number 29 entry, Philippe Salaquada, belying his lack of experience in this car, doing a tremendous job hanging on to second place. But the gap now is 5.6 seconds. Having to defend this second position is not helping Salaquada in terms of lap times, and it is not helping him in terms of staying with the leader, Bas Linders. There is the leader, more traffic ahead. The Lotus, number 61, is about to be negotiated. That's the car that Laurence Frey shares with Rolf Maritz and Freddie Barth, winners at Navarra. But Philippe Salaquada is certainly being impressive in this car. The Czech driver, first time out in the Blancpain Endurance Series, first race in the Ferrari, and he's keeping at bay Ludovic Badet then as the two Ferraris work at the moment, lap 22. 2 hours and 22 minutes of the race remain. And of course those cars that can get to the hour mark, or maybe just a little bit after that, on a tank of fuel are going to be helped. Well, we've had that one lap under the safety car. How much will that have helped the fuel economy? It will have helped a little bit, but only a very small amount will it have helped. That McLaren looking as though it's going to be a retirement. It's still sitting by the side of the road. There's nobody there to give it a push. There's no snatch vehicle to move it out of the way. So it rather looks disappointingly as though that car could be another retirement here. Alvaro Parente, incidentally, having lost time in the pits, back in the race, but 23rd. So that's another car to look for, trying to work its way back into contention. Stéphane Ortelli now up into 20th place in the WRT Belgian Audi Club Audi R8. Meantime, we're looking at the battle for second and third places. Philippe Salaquada's car better at certain parts of the circuit than others. And Ludovic Badet then very, very good on the brakes down towards the end of the lap. Traffic in the way. They'll get past the Lotus Evora here. Both Ferraris dive by on the way in towards turn 1, the Grand Courbe. And meantime, lower down the order, Richard Westbrook is trying to gain ground. Look, in the Nissan, he's on the tail of Giacomo Petrobelli. This is for 13th and 14th places now. Fabien Giraud I was talking about a moment ago in the Lamborghini has just done a personal best lap. He's broken into the top 10. Over the line goes Petrobelli then. And these two coming under pressure as well as the cars turn through turn one, because 42 Eric Cayrol, very experienced French GT and touring car racer, is hunting down the distinctive blue Nissan that tries to get the inside of Petrobelli's Ferrari. The JR Motorsports Nissan versus the Scuderia Vittoria Ferrari 458. And Giacomo Petrobelli then is doing a good job of defending the former Formula Palmer Audi racer turned GT driver. And he's got Richard Westbrook behind him in this 3.8 litre twin turbo Nissan. And Richard tries to go the long way round. Is he going to be able to do it at the Adelaide hairpin? He's going to run out of road there. And he's got to be a bit careful when he puts the power down, because sometimes that car looks a bit tail happy, and he's lost a place. Eric Cayrol has gone by, I think. Yes, he has. Eric Cayrol goes 14th now at the expense of Richard Westbrook. Everywhere you look, there are battles. Every battle you find has got places being traded, and this one has not yet resolved itself. Petrobelli has been falling down and down the order. Scuderia Vittoria, a new team this year, racing in the Clio Cup in the UK, in the Blancpain Endurance Series, in European GT3, in the British GT Championship. One first time out in British GT, in fact, at Dawson Park at the start of the year. Meantime, Vita 4-1 versus Sofret for second place. Philippe Salaquada, being one of the real stars of the race so far, goes over the timing line, 6 seconds behind the race leader, but he's keeping second position. In third is Badet, and meantime, there you can see Fabien Giraud versus Ortelli. Ortelli, remember, is a lap down, so Fabien Giraud can afford to let him go rather than getting caught up in any needless battle. Giraud's already had a bit of contact with the Cedric Lima Lamborghini earlier on in the race. You have to say, though, that Gulf liveried Lambo is going to drop away. Andrea Barlesi will be quick enough in that car, but Jean-Pierre Valentini, who is the third driver, is not on the same sort of pace, so it will fall away when you put Valentini behind the wheel. But that's, again, one of the aspects of this championship. Fabien Giraud then, having done a good job in his stint in that car, hauling it into the top 10. And an effort is being made, look, on the inside, just behind, by Nick Homerson to try to gain ground. He's got Lorenzo Beira de Vega's Lamborghini running with him. And then you've got Eric Cayrol starting to close up as well. Cayrol having picked his way past Giacomo Petrobelli now. Petrobelli having to defend from Richard Westbrook. So, Bas Linders BMW leads the way. But here, second and third, still absolutely locked together. And Philippe Salaquada, somehow, is being able to keep Ludovic Badet behind him. The two Ferrari 458, same type of car, different teams running them, head down towards the completion of the lap. This is lap 23. The BMW goes over the timing line now, as out of the chicane come the two Ferraris. Well, we saw Oliver Turvey do the first stint in the 59 McLaren. He's out of the car, he's in the pit lane with Haley.
Ollie, can you give us an update on car number 59?
Yeah, we took the chance there in the safety car to make a pit stop and make the driver change. So yeah, it was great to get in the car this time in my first ever GT3 race, and great to start the race and gain that experience. Unfortunately, we're struggling quite a lot with some straight line speed, so it was quite difficult at the start of the race. But the car felt good, nice to drive, good balance. So hopefully we can keep on improving through the race.
I know you guys have suffered with an electrical problem. Is that the problem now with car number 60?
I'm not sure what's happened to car 60. I saw he was on the grass, but yeah, at the pit stop we had a slight problem starting the engine, but once it was fired, the car's running fine now. So
thank you.
Thanks.
So 59 going well, so too Philippe Salaquada hanging on to second place, keeping at Ludovic Badet, these two still running together. Now meantime, Julien Jus, who is the other star of this first stint, from the back of the grid, running six, doing personal best laps, catching Andrea Piccini. Salaquada hangs on to second position. We've seen how well he's been able to defend when he was in the lead, keeping Ortelli and Linders at bay for as long as he could. Well, now he's doing exactly the same thing, staving off this challenge from Ludovic Badet's Ferrari. Cars making their way down then towards the completion of lap 25. Julien Jus has been in this first stint of the race the fastest driver. He has done the best lap of the race, a 1:41.309, which was in fact on that previous lap through. There is Julien Jus then, who is 6th at the moment. He's got right ahead of him Andrea Piccini for 5th, and Piccini is on the tail of Gianluca Roda, who does a good job in that car. He's not the quickest of the 3 in the Orlando Sport Porsche by a long way, but he does a very good, solid job. And Gianluca Roda then turns his way out of the Grand Courbe down now towards Estoril, hanging on to 4th place, and very wide indeed goes Piccini. Is this going to give a chance possibly to Julien Jus as the number 1 Ferrari bails out of 7th place and comes down the pit road now? Number 1 then, Frank Heckler down the pit lane. There he is. Are we going to have a driver change in that car? I think the answer is going to be yes. Door opens. Meantime, to the inside goes Julien Jus, but he's not going to be able to get past Piccini there, I don't think. No, he can't quite do it. And Piccini tries to get past Gianluca Roda coming out of the corner. And that doesn't work either. And all over the grass, trying to gain ground with Julien Jus. Again, you just don't believe they're treating this as an endurance race. It's a 3-hour race with 2 hours 15 minutes still to go, and another tremendous battle is building up now for 4th place. Gianluca Roda just ahead of Piccini, just ahead of car number 10 then, Julien Jus at the wheel. All of this for 4th, 5th and 6th as the cars head now towards the chicane at the Nürburgring, sorry, the Imola chicane I should say, up towards Chateau d'Eau. And this time around it rather looks as though Piccini is the one having to do the defending. Julien Jus tucked up behind him, looking for a way through. Now Frank Heckler is about to rejoin, or at least that car is. Blasts into the race. Vita 4-1 at the pit exit end of the pit road. We've also had 38 Giacomo Petrobelli come in as well now. Wide there goes the Audi, up the inside goes the Ferrari of Julien Jus, and so 5th from the back of the grid becomes now Julien Jus. It really is a superb effort, this, and so Julien Jus, then the French driver, from 35th to 5th, goes through yet more ground gain, and look, straight away pulls away from Andrea Piccini. Bas Linders leading the way by 6.7 seconds. Gianluca Roda, however, hangs on to his 4th place here. For how much longer, though? Because he's got the inevitable Julien Jus bearing down on him. Is he going to be able to find a way through on this lap? Well, to be fair to Gianluca Roda, he's a good defensive driver, vastly experienced Porsche pilot, not just in this championship, but also he's been a mainstay of the International GT Open, runner-up for the last 3 seasons, in fact. But it's interesting the way here that Piccini is losing ground, rather, to the flying Julien Jus. So having been on the tail of the Porsche, now all of a sudden Piccini falls away. The number 60 McLaren, by the way, Klaus Hummel, back into the race. Many laps down now, sad to say, but the car is still circulating, which is what McLaren GT, the team, wants to do. As many laps with the cars, more development, more mileage, more lessons learned. The race leader, Bas Linders for the Mark VDS Racing team, there he is, comes down towards the completion of lap 27. We're approaching the end of the first third of the race then, just under 13 minutes away from the end of the first hour, and Bas Linders leading the way. We've had 3 different cars lead, this, the Salaquada Ferrari, and for all of a corner, Stefan Ortelli's Audi, don't forget. It was briefly ahead, but only ever so briefly. Giacomo Petrobelli's Ferrari, which we've seen losing places, made a pit stop, and I think he's still, yes it is, in the pit road. So 38 Ferrari tumbling further and further down the order. Bas Linders then holding sway up front, and number 1 that we saw pit has now been taken over by Nico Verdonk. That car currently in 17th place. An early pit stop, it must be said, for that number 1 car, but again it was another one that seemed to be losing a little bit of pace. But whether it's been a good idea to get that on a different strategy and perhaps therefore clear of some of the back markers, we'll have to wait and see whether it was running on a lighter fuel load to begin with. But either way, number 1 finds itself with lots of work to do. In the meantime, you've got the number 20 Ferrari, Ludovic Vade, still running in 3rd place. 4th is Gianluca Roda, and into the pit lane has just come the 59 Alvaro Parent McLaren. That suggests that all is not well there. We've also got the 61 Lotus having just pitted. Lawrence Frey having done that first stint in the car that was competitive in GT4. Well, there you can see Scuderia Vittoria's troubled Ferrari, which looks like it's going to be in for quite a long time. And the McLaren behind, Alvaro Parent, has just brought that car into the pit lane. It was within the top 20. but now he's going to lose more ground, I'm afraid. Gianluca Roda then hangs on to 4th place, at least for the moment. Julien Juste behind, and now that those two have got themselves together and are holding each other up, look what's happened. Creeping back into the picture is the 33 Audi. Andrea Piccini then is catching up once more. Bouncing over the curb is Juste. That car looking very, very twitchy indeed as he puts the power down out of the chicane over the line. The GT3 cars for the moment going further, in fact, than GT4 cars on fuel, because now Alex Buncombe has just come into the pit road as well. Scuderia Vittoria's Ferrari going to its garage. There is the 61 Lotus then, a class winner in GT4 already this season. And this gives the number 70 Lotus an even greater advantage in class at the moment. Eduardo Piscopo, who tends to do the first stint in that car, leading the way. Meantime, working his way through the traffic is Philippe Salaquada. Gianluca Roda then keeping number 10 Ferrari behind. Julien Juste looks for a way by. We're on lap 29 then here. There is number 10 Julien Juste. Ludovic Badet losing out on this lap in the first sector. Gianluca Roda trying to get past back markers. He gets past Piscopo. He's also taking with him Julien Juste. So this is where the top GT3 drivers really earn their money, because they're trying to attack the places and defend at the same time. They've got to work their way through traffic. There's an awful lot going on. You can't drop your guard for a second. And Gianluca Roda, as I say, may not be quite as quick as those ahead, but he's doing a very good job. Or he was up alongside him almost with Julien Juste. But look at the way the Porsche fights back. It's got that bit of frontal damage from earlier on. But Gianluca Roda doing exactly what he did at Monza, keeping the car in contention in the first stint and being able to fend off what you might think were quicker drivers, quicker cars. Here comes Juste up the inside, down towards turn 15, but Roda just moves across on him, takes the line for the corner, so Julien Juste is denied once more. The French driver stuck behind the Italian. Out of the chicane, Andrea Piccini running behind them in 6th place. And that lap through, incidentally, Salaquada has just done a personal best lap. He's a bit closer to the race leader. He's also, therefore, getting away now, rather, just a little bit more that last lap through from Ludovic Badet. Big slide there by the Porsche. Gianluca Roda, too much speed, carried into the Estoril corner, but he manages to catch the slide. But has it compromised his exit speed? I think it has. Right on his tail now, Julien Juste, this for 4th place. Up they come towards the braking area now. Hard on the brakes into the Adelaide hairpin. And the 51 Ferrari getting in the way then. He's been made contact by the Porsche, and that delays Gianluca Roda enough then to allow up the inside Julien Juste. So there's more damage on the front of the Porsche, and 51 getting in the way then. I'm afraid that the number 51 Ferrari rather compromises the effort of Gianluca Roda. There's more damage on the front of the Porsche. Julien Juste goes by then, gains the place, but Gino Forgione getting in the way. Contact was made between him and Roda, and now not only has Gianluca lost a place, but he's being caught by Andrea Piccini. And the danger about front damage on Porsches is how close to the front of the car the radiator is. It can sometimes be only the lightest of taps that damages the radiator. Hopefully it has not done that to Gianluca Roda's car, but you can see how second-hand it's looking. It's had a couple of big impacts so far in this race. And we're not even at the end of the first hour, and that car looking decidedly second-hand. So Roda losing a place, and Julien Juste, he's not going to get the lead, is he? But that car could yet be a winning car, given the way that it's going and how you've got the unknown quantities of other drivers ahead to see what happens for them later in the race. So we have Patrice Goillard and Jérôme Policon as the other drivers of the number 10 Ferrari. Patrice Goillard, you saw in the pit lane. Now there, number 9 goes wide off into the gravel. Gianluca Roda goes off through the gravel. He's kept the car going. Is he going to be able to get back onto the circuit without getting bogged down? Yes, he is. That's exactly what Paolo Roberti did in the qualifying session. He slides back onto the road, manages to hang onto the car. He's going to be able to stay ahead of the Audi of Andrea Piccini. The two of them nose to tail as they head up towards the Adelaide hairpin now. Those two tied together, but that was a big drama then for the Porsche. So Gianluca Roda comes out the other side of the gravel. Up the inside goes the Audi now, and that is the Stefano Telli Audi, in fact, which is the car that's a lap down. So we've got 33 Andrea Piccini through already, and Gianluca Roda now having to try to play catch-up after that big lose going through the gravel. Another spin. That is the Eric Cairol Ferrari having a big lose off into the gravel, and that car has been tagged by the Nissan. And so we've got then 42, Eric Carroll off into the gravel. And hopefully that car's going to be able to get going from there. It was clipped, we gather, by Richard Westbrook in the Nissan. Now, they were battling for 12th place, and a loop for the Ferrari puts it into the gravel. So it is all happening, as ever it has been really in the race so far. And that's the change for second place about to happen. Coming through the chicane, finally, Ludovic Badet has gone through. Everywhere you look, every camera shot shows you something else happening, and that's the change for second place. We've had some great racing in the Blancpain Endurance Series so far this year. This is the best of the lot, and this fourth round of the championship being led by BMW. The Ferrari fight for second place now, putting Ludovic Badet ahead of Philippe Salaquada. And there's a yellow flag zone, of course, here after Eric Carroll's 430 Ferrari got tagged into its spin and has rotated. What's going to happen next? It's been a remarkable race so far. Marc VDS Racing lead the way. Now, historically, that is a team that is quick, but tends to have its little dramas on the reliability stakes. Hopefully that won't happen. What about Jérôme Policon's Ferrari? It's up into second place.
Jérôme, what a performance in the Ferrari by Julien.
It's amazing because it starts from 35 in the grid, because we have a gearbox problem during the qualify. He didn't even do a lap in a dry condition, and now he's charging in his force. For sure, we know he was fast, but today he proves that he's one of the best French drivers around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, fourth for Julien Jus. Second is the sister car of Ludovic Badet, which of course is also leading the Pro-Am Cup, lest you forget. So number 20, a class leading car, but there's Julien Jus, fourth at the moment. That's going to be good for a top three result, isn't it? How far up within the top three remains to be seen, but against three quick drivers in that car, we still need to find out exactly how rapid Martin Magny-Cours is going to be when he does the middle stint in 29. I would think Michael Bartels is going to be pretty pleased with the way that Philippe Salaquada has gone. Over the line there goes Bas Linders then. So the race leader, and you're riding with him, working his way now through Grand Cours down towards Estoril. And that's a yellow flag zone because, of course, of the Eric Carroll Ferrari having to be snatched out of the way. Up to the Adelaide hairpin. Bas Linders leads the race. Now, is he going to be caught by Ludovic Badet? Well, the gap between them is up to 7.3 seconds, although Badet lost more time trying to overtake. Now, there's the Porsche. Gianluca Roda is in. And what is a rather second-hand looking Porsche 911 now, with mechanics trying to jump onto the bodywork to make it roughly Porsche-shaped again, and then perhaps have to tap it down. Gianluca Roda will give way to Raffaele Giammaria, who tends to do the middle stint in that car. Paolo Roberti brings it home. Julien Jus has still done the best lap of the race. So number 9 comes in with effectively 3.5 minutes to go before the end of the first hour. So it's not gone quite as far as they may have hoped. It's not gone to the hour mark on that tank of fuel. But I just wonder whether they had a few alarm bells ringing after all the contact and thought it was a good idea to bring it in. Just give it a check over. Now, number 1 is now being driven by Nico Verdon. That car, of course, was in that leading gaggle early on, pitted early, fell down the order to 17th. Leader having to lap the Nissan, which incidentally has been taken over by Jordan Tresson now. There's number 1, which is Nico Verdon. You've just seen he's a lap down, of course, against the BMW. And that Porsche is about to go a lap down as well if they're not careful. The BMW goes by. There's not too much tank tape on the front, it's just very wrinkled now, the front of the Ortolando Sport Porsche. Bits of a Ferrari or something else that needs dragging out of the way. That's going to help it, it'll be much lighter now, you've got rid of that bit. New Michelins go onto the Porsche. And this car falls down the order as number 10 now comes into the pit lane as well. So Julien Jus, after that great effort, comes in, and Patrice Gouillard, I would imagine, he's going to do the middle stint in that car. Jérôme Policon tends to finish. So Patrice Gouillard, another very experienced French GT racer, to get on board. And number 50, Jack Gerber, in to give way to Matt Griffin. So Jack Gerber, who is quick, but nowhere near as quick as Matt Griffin. 17th he was. Gianluca Roda's car rejoins the race. Also the number 6 Lamborghini has come in. So this is where the order becomes very jumbled indeed. The top 3 remains the same. Bas Linders ahead of Ludovic Badet, ahead of Philippe Salaquada. And it is indeed Giammaria who takes over number 9 then, confirmed as he goes through the pit's exit timing loop. There's the number 18 Porsche that had its spin early on in the race. That car now is down in 30th place. That was the reason for the safety car, remember, many, many laps ago. And normally that is a fairly rapid car. The car started by Alessandro Bonetti, Gianluca De Lorenzi, the other driver of that car. Number 6 in, started by Lorenzo Barrio de Vega, and that having been the best placed, in fact, of the Lamborghinis. So we are just about at the end of the first hour of the race. Yellow lights are flashing on the gantry on the pit straight, but there's no suggestion of the safety car. Looking to see if anybody has gone off at turn 3. Yes, they have. So we've got Eric Cairol's car still being snatched out of the way. It's rather a lengthy snatch operation, this. Still the yellow lights flash around the circuit. I was beginning to think it was a separate incident, but it's still that car being recovered to the service road. So it rather looks like Eric Cairol's car is going to be out of the race as well. Matt Griffin in number 50 is going to be certainly a man to watch in this middle stint now. Now, Paolo Roberti's Porsche has got damage, as we know. There it is. Let's hear from Paolo in the pits with Haley.
Paolo, just witnessed the damage to the Porsche. Will it be okay till the end of the race?
The car is okay. Gianluca had the contact with another Ferrari. I think he lose a little bit of time, but we're still fighting for a podium result. We try to do our best.
Thank you.
Well, it's a winning car, one at Monza, and the way that things can happen in the Blancpain Endurance Series suggests that even though it's now down the order, it will gain places back as others pit, and of course as others have their problems as well. So for the moment, this car runs in 17th place, a lap down, but it's going to be able to gain places, I would have thought, before the end of the race. That's for sure, because you get Gianmaria in the car now. He's quicker than Roda, and then Paolo Roberti for the last stint. He's quicker again. Meantime, Bas Linders has done a very good first hour in the BMW. No problems at all here. Worked his way through that lead battle, picked up the top spot, let them squabble behind him, kept out of trouble, unlike Stefano Telli. The race order now: Linders leading Bade, Salaquada is third, Andrea Piccini up to fourth, Fabian Gira's Lamborghini is fifth, Jan Clary's Aston Martin sixth, Nick Homerson's Ferrari seventh, Henri Moser's Aston eighth, ninth is Richard Westbrook in the Nissan, and in 10th place now is 81 Porsche, Christian Kelders, the Belgian driver. As far as Nico Verdonk is concerned, he is 12th, so he's managed to keep track position, therefore ahead of the number 9 Porsche. Raffaele Gianmaria has got work to do here. Where did Matt Griffin rejoin in 50? 18th, so he's behind the Porsche. Number 31 has pitted as well now. Georges Cabana, double winner in the Gentleman Trophy this year. You can see how busy it is at the Adelaide hairpin. You can see how much rubbish there is now offline there. But Philippe Salaquada in third place. How far away from the leader is he? He's 9.7 seconds. And if it's Martin Matschke to do the middle stint, they need to try to make it a rather short middle stint for him in that car, I think. Fabian Giraud comes in, so 45 will drop down the order. We've also got Jan Clary and Nick Homerson both pitting as well now. So those cars will lose a little bit of ground. And 35, the Nissan, Richard Westbrook, to give way to David Brabham. There's the driver change for Hexis AMR, the 6th placed Aston Martin. So how far Bas Linders going to go? All of this suggesting as well that this BMW is very good on fuel, because it has had to run at a fairly frenetic pace in that lead battle early on. He's been able to pull away from others. So Bas Linders has certainly not been driving slowly. And that car leading the way now by 6.5 seconds, and he is still circulating, as also the second of the Sofrev cars, numerically number 20, which is in 2nd place. The sister car down to 14th again after its pit stop. Patrice Guillard now having taken over. There's the leader, the number 40 BMW then leads the way. Last time around it was 7 seconds, the advantage that had been built up by Bas Linders. And the vastly experienced Belgian driver, one-time Minardi test driver, Carter, Formula Ford champion, raced in the British Formula Ford series for a while, raced in the Formula Opel Euro series, drove in German Formula 3, World Series by Nissan, and his GT involvement came in the quirky Alfa Romeo engine Gillette Vertigo many, many years ago, before he became part of the Mark VDS racing team in GT3 and in GT1 cars. And so Bas Linders then now, who has been a winner in the GT1 World Championship as well this year, won the qualifying races in Abu Dhabi and at the Sachsenring, powers on, all the while trying to build up the lead. But of course he's got 2 quick co-drivers in Maxime Martin and Marcus Paltela. Philippe Salaquada is in, so Martin Matschke expected to do the middle stint in that car. The tyres being changed, and the Czech driver then will be ready to go in a moment or two once that tyre stop has been completed. So 29 will drop down the order, of course, but it'll gain some of that lost ground back as other people pit. The pit lane getting busier and busier now. We've also had the 51 Ferrari in that was involved with this car a little bit earlier on. If you remember, there was contact. Away goes 29. So the Vita 4-1 Ferrari down the pit road as more and more head into the pit lane, in fact. Martin Matschke rejoins as now number 20 comes in as well. So the car it was fighting with pits, and Bas Leinders just keeps on going, almost metronomically now, that car continuing. 36 after his spin, Marco Cassera has pitted. And the number 20 Ferrari, as I say, Ludovic Badet comes in also. So Ludovic Badet from second spot pits. Bas Leinders just keeps on going, building up this lead all the time. This is potentially now going to give Andrea Piccini in the 33 Audi second place. But it's going to be after these pit stops have all unravelled that we'll get an idea of the true order and, of course, where the next battles are coming from. But while these pit stops are happening, say number 1 Ferrari, Nico Verdonk is working his way up the order. 33 Andrea Piccini gets past Eric Cairol, and then Cairol gets tagged by Stefan Ortelli, who really is being in the wars here. And there's more bodywork goes flying. Now I think that's Audi bodywork. Let's try and have a look at the front of yeah, there it is. So it flew up earlier, now it's gone completely after yet more contact. Stefan Ortelli has got quite a bit of the red mist, it would appear here, and runs deep into the corner. That's at turn 8. So he tried to follow through Piccini as he nipped past the slow Ferrari. Eric Cairol had to take his line out of the corner, got biffed in the tail by the Audi, and that front bodywork section has now ripped itself off. More bits go flying. So this new lightweight model heading perhaps for the pit lane here. At some point, I would imagine, the scrutineers may want to look at that car to make sure it's safe. The race director may also want a word with Stefan Ortelli about driving standards here. There is going to be, perhaps a little bit pointless, a black and orange mechanical warning flag given to Stefan Ortelli. I think he's probably aware that his car's falling apart around him. He's had a rather integral part in its disassembly process here. Now more and more heading for the pit lane, including Andrea Piccini. Number 4 Henri Moser has come in. The number 70 GT4 leading Lotus has come in as well, Eduardo Piscopo. The one of significance that has yet to come in is Bas Leinders. There he is. Now, just to catch up on one or two of the fresh drivers, number 20, that was Ludovic Badet, is now Franck Morel. Number 4 has gone the way of Gilles Vannelet. 51, which was way back anyway, still being shown as Forgione driving it. Car number 2, key to the Pro-Am battle, the Vita 4-1 Ferrari, has now been taken over by Paul van Splunteren. Number 3 Aston Martin by Pierre-Brice Mena. Frédéric Fatien has taken over number 45 Lamborghini from Fabien Gira. And 31 Georges Caban brought it in. He is shown as still being behind the wheel in that car, but I rather doubt that. You've got to keep changing the drivers. They've got 3 to get through, so 31 I think has got the transponder position in the wrong place. It's showing the wrong driver for the moment, at least. Now there is Bas Leinders. Does he come in this time? This is the race leading car, and another lap is about to be picked off. The BMW Z4 has been a very good car this year, not just in the Blancpain series when we saw it debut at Navarra and went well at Spa, whether it's this team or the Schubert engineering team, but also in the FIA GT3 European Championship. And so Bas Leinders underlining how good the Marc VDS car is going. Now we've got number 29, which is Martin Matschke, just ahead here of the sister car of Nico Verdonk, and on the pit stops by getting out of traffic early. Nico Verdonk has done a great job. He's into contention, and there Andrea Piccini drops back behind them. So this means that Martin Matschke is second, third is Verdonk, and down to 4th goes Piccini as he came out of the pits there, had to respect that white line. And what this means is that number 1, the Vita 4-1 Ferrari with Nico Verdonk at the wheel, has had an ideal strategy by coming in early, getting it out of some of the traffic, and that car has just worked its way back up the order, and now it is better placed than ever. It's in 4th. It was never that good to start the race in the hands of the German driver Frank Heckler, who made that short first stint. There's Stefan Ortelli's car in the pit lane. What's left of it, I suppose you could argue. 33, Andrea Piccini's car now, Greg Franchi at the wheel. And this is the fight for second place now going on between Martin Matschke and Nico Verdonk. The two Ferraris then from the same team tied together as they work their way up towards Chateau d'Eau. Well, we saw how well 29 could defend when it was Salaquada driving it. Can Martin Matschke, who is also a newcomer to the car, defend quite as resolutely? He's gaining some knowledge of driving the car because he will drive 4v1 in the last German round at the end of the season. The leader in at the end of lap 40. The race leader comes into the pit lane. So number 40 on lap 40. Down the pit road comes Bas Linders, and he's already tripped the switch to say Marcus Palteler will take the car over. So Bas has done, I think you'd agree, a tremendous job in that car within that first stint, and we'll no doubt hear from him very, very shortly. Stefan Ortelli in, 81 Christian Kelders has also brought his Porsche in to give way to Daniel Debreuer. So, driver change, fuel goes in, then we'll have the tyre change on the leading BMW, but the real question now is to see where that car rejoins relative to what is now the second place Ferrari of Nico Verdonk that has just gone ahead of Martin Matschke. So we've had the change around between the Vita 4-1 Ferraris. There it is, there's number 1. So this car now up into second place. Don't forget it was the winning car at Navarra, the other driver to take over, and we really are interested to see how he gets on because he never got to drive at Spa, is Jean-Carl Vernet, who has done great things in single-seaters, most recently in America, and now with a little bit of Peugeot money helping him, is looking at a sports car career. Vita 4-1 or Vitaphone Racing in the past has always had good relationships with Peugeot. Think about Stéphane Sarrazin driving for them, think about Pedro Lamy driving for Michael Bartel's team, and now J.K. Vernet is the next in this line. There's the leading car, tyres being changed, Marcus Palteler ready to go. Where will it rejoin relative to the number 1 Ferrari? Remember, there was a big gap opening up between them anyway. Down the pit road goes the BMW. So Marcus Palteler then, the race leader, can't get up to full speed just yet. Now he can. And number 1 is only now coming up towards the end of the lap. So it's still going to be quite a gap between them. There's a lot of work to do yet for Nico Verdonk, who's not been racing at this level for that long. Nico having come out of the Italian and German, the Spanish Formula 3 Championships, was the Belgian Touring Car Series winner last year. He's done some Formula Le Mans racing as well. Martin Matschke, their third, dropping away now from Verdonk. The team manager of Car 33 and the driver, Andrea Piccini, both being summoned to the race director now, so there's a question mark over 33. But there's Bas Linders. Let's hear from him.
Wow, Bas, what a performance in the BMW. You've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, I was really happy. I didn't expect it. First time I drove with this car was the first stint in 24 hours, and I only did one stint, so this was like the second time I was properly driving it, and the car feels really good. It's easy to handle, and straight away I could put pressure on the Ferrari and the Audi, and they made some mistakes. They were like battling maybe a little bit too much, and I took advantage of it. And passing the slower cars is quite difficult, but I think I managed to open the gap thanks to some good passing, I think.
Thank you, Bas.
Well, Bas Linders then, his work done. Marcus Palteler is now behind the wheel of the car. This next lap is going to be his first proper flying lap, so then we'll get an idea of what his pace is relative to number 1, which is the Nico Verdonk driven Ferrari. Martin Matschke is falling away in third place. I'm still intrigued to know what Andrea Piccini has done wrong. As I say, he is being summoned to the race director, Eduardo Freitas, as also is the team manager of Car 33, which runs 4th, and there, off the road, is 36. Marco Cather has started it and spun at that part of the circuit, and he is shown as still being behind the wheel, though it has had a pit stop. Sergio Negroni and Luigi Emiliani are the other 2 drivers of that car. It rotates, and it's about to rejoin. Stefan Ortelli, by the way, we saw the 32 Audi in with all its bodywork damage. It is still in the pit lane, so they try to work out how that car's going to be able to rejoin without the front bodywork anymore on it. 35 Nissan there, you can see David Brabham with the race leader bearing down on him. Brabs is in 11th place now, the Australian GT1 driver for Nissan, of course, ALMS champion, Le Mans winner in the past, outright for Peugeot, GT classes for Aston Martin. And the gap last time between the top 2 was 11.6 seconds. So at the end of Marcus Palteler's first lap in the car, an outlap, the gap had come down to 11.6 seconds. The BMW that has led the bulk of that first hour, I suppose it's fair to say, ahead of number 1 Ferrari, that has been nowhere really for the first hour of the race. It was in traffic, it was within the top, dozen for the majority of the race. It had to work its way up the order, but Nico Verdonk now doing a good job. But of course that car running slightly out of sequence. I just wonder whether they're going to do just 2 pit stops or whether they're going to have to do an extra one at the end. So its strategy is key to its success here. They brought it in early, pitted early, but can they go now on just one more stop to put Jean-Carl Vernet into that car? Down the pit road has just come the 18 Porsche that was a spinner early on. Remember the car that brought out the safety car early in the race. So at the end of the 42nd lap, the leading BMW goes through. There, number 1, the second placed Ferrari, being held up a little bit in traffic here. Right, left, out of the chicane, up over the timing line now goes Nico Verdonk, and the gap is 11.1 seconds. That lap, despite the traffic, was better for the Ferrari, but he's being delayed now by number 22. This is the car that was on its class pole position in the hands of Lionel Comol. Lionel started the car, still being shown as driving it, but I suspect we have had a driver change in that as well, because it's made 1 pit stop and he's getting in the way a little bit now. The 22 Ferrari of Nico Verdonk very badly in the way there, the car drifting across and getting in the way. So Nico Verdonk is being compromised here on the run up towards the Adelaide hairpin. Goes to the inside line now, but this has become rather more of a battle to lap a car than he really needed. So I reckon that gap between the top 2 is going to widen this time around. There's Mr. VDS himself taking photographs. Arch enthusiast, Mark van der Straten. Checks the quality of his work. So, at the moment, he has got some very good images to take here. His car leading the way. And the BMW, there it is. Marcus Palteler at the wheel, in traffic. Ahead is Jordan Tresson's Nissan. And at the end of a quite remarkable first hour of the race, there has been all action. BMW leading, but being caught. Now, in the first sector of this lap, the gap had widened because of the delay that Nico Verdonk had in traffic, but in the second section, the gap has come down just a little bit. So, overall, I still think the Ferrari is going to be able to make some strides within this second stint. And then you put, assuming the battle carries on between those 2 cars, Maxime Martin up against Jean-Carl Vernet for the last stint. That's going to be intriguing as well. That's why there's so much to enjoy out of these 3-hour races. It's a great concept, new for this year, based on how successful last year's Spa 24 Hours was, bringing, as it then was, GT2, GT3 and GT4 cars together. But GT3 and 4 together for this year's Blancpain Endurance Series works very, very well indeed. And the fact that SRO has introduced these different classes for the Pro-Ams and the Gentleman Racers and for the older Cup class cars is another strength of the series as well. Every race has been fascinating. This, I think, has not just been fascinating, it's given us some of the best wheel-to-wheel racing of the championship so far, and new cars coming in all the time. You saw the Nissan there, which is staying on the lead lap for the moment. David Brabham in 11th place. Last time, in fact, did that car's best lap of the race, so Brabham's getting faster all the time. The Nissan powering past the GT4 spec Lotuses there, and having just held up Nico Verdonk, 22 Lionel Comol's Ferrari has come down the pit road now. Baz Linders leading the way. There's more bodywork lying in the road. That's going to become an issue, isn't it, when the light fades? It's the other sting in the tail for this race. Now there is Matt Griffin, number 50. That car, I think, was 17th when Jack Gerber pitted. Matt is already up to 13th. He was quickest in Q2, was Matt, which was the one session that he was given to drive the car. Jack Gerber drove in Q1 and Q3. Normally, Q2 is when the slower gentleman racer is in a given car, so it makes traffic even more difficult for the quick drivers. And Matt worked his usual magic and was quickest of anybody in that part of the session and got Pro-Am pole position as a result of that for the AF Corsa team, Ambato Ferrari's team. And Ferrari ahead as well, as you can see, which is one of the soft rev cars. Now, number 10, Patrice Goëllard is currently 6th. This car, which is Franck Morel, is in 5th place. And in a sense, this is a proper battle. It's not for position yet, but they are in the same class. And Franck Morel isn't as quick by any stretch as Matt Griffin. So if he loses track position, he's also going to lose a lot more time as well before the end of his stint. And Matt Griffin dives up the inside. It's great to see the way that Matt in recent seasons has become an in-demand GT gun for hire, having struggled for many, many seasons with hardly any money at all as a single-seater racer, then made the transition to win the GT Cup class of British GT with Patrick Pearce a number of years ago, and that looked like that was going to kick-start his career. Then he was given the rather unenviable task of having to drive the Vauxhall Monaro for a year in British GT, and his career was derailed a little bit. But now Matt finding a Ferrari to drive almost every weekend in British GT, in the Blancpain Endurance Series, in European GT3 as well, and underlining to people just how good a driver he is these days. So Matt Griffin, 13th, but he's going to be much higher up the order before the end of his stint, that is for sure. Their car 31, leading the Gentleman Trophy class, Georges Cabin, Fabien Michel and Greg Gilbert. 2 wins this year for Georges Cabin, one of which was with Greg Gilbert, the other at Navarra was with Fabien Michel. It's Fabien Michel at the wheel of that car now, having taken over, in fact, from Georges Cabin last time when that car pitted. Runs out wide, and that's more track position gained by Matt Griffin, who ducks up the inside. The car that Matt's chasing, incidentally, is the number 6 Duarte Felix da Costa Lamborghini. The gap between them is 5.9 seconds, and last time Matt Griffin's lap was 4.4 seconds quicker than the car he's chasing, so it won't be long before Matt Griffin is 12, that's for sure. Fabien Michel then in 31, 19th overall. And the BMW M3, the GT4 class car there, which we saw for the first time in the Spa 24 hours, and that is Giuseppe De Pasquale and Raffaele Sangiolo, 2 stalwart GT racers, and the car was started by De Pasquale. Now it is Sangiolo at the wheel to catch up on 1 or 2 other cars that have made pit stops now. 22 Leonard Camel still in the pit lane, in fact. 18 is also still in the pit lane, Gianluca De Lorenzi, and Stefan Ortelli's Audi. Has that rejoined yet, or is that still in the pit road? That has gone back into the race, that Longin at the wheel, but it's down in 25th place, many laps adrift now. So Stefan Ortelli had done the fastest lap of the race, but then more damage and a lengthy pit stop, so that car's a long way back. Big lock up there, and off the road completely in a spin goes 61 Lotus. That is now at the helm Rolf Maritz, returning to racing this year in the Blancpain Endurance Series after many seasons away. Somebody that raced Porsches in the late 1970s, in fact the old Group 5 days at Porsche 911s, but he's had a big lose there, and so now that puts 62 into the lead of GT4. It is Andrina Guga at the wheel of that car, and it has yet to make a pit stop, believe it or not. This is the only car within the top 20 that has not yet pitted. Andrina Guga doing a tremendous job, going a long way on this first tank of fuel, but they still have to make the Regulation 2 pit stop. They can't do it on just one. Andrina Guga, who drove the Maserati at the start of the year at Monza, sharing with Matthias Gammarth, the Austrian driver, who began in the Polo Cup a few years ago, supporting the DTM, and has raced minis and more recently sports prototypes at club level. But Andrina Guga then 18th overall. So the car there, 31, which is Fabien Michel in 19th place. That car is now 3 laps down on the race leader. Of course, pit stops tend to open up these gaps yet more. Number 3, Pierre-Bryce Maynard, 9th in the Hexis AMR Aston. The race order then is number 40, Marcus Paltler, BMW, leading from number 1, Nico Verdonk. The gap is coming down and down all the time. It was round about 11 seconds when the stint began for the 2 drivers. It's now 8 seconds. In 3rd place is number 29, Martin Matschke, staying in touch, which is encouraging. 4th is 33, Greg Franchi's Audi. 5th is number 20, Franck Morel in the Sofrev Ferrari, being caught by his teammate number 10, Patrice Gouillard, who is 6th. 7th is number 2 now with Paul van Splunteren at the wheel. In 8th place is Raffaele Giammarea's Porsche, that's not really coming back into the equation, is it? The number 9 crumpled Porsche. 9th is this car, number 3 Pierre-Bryce Maynard, and 10th now is number 4, which is Gilles Vannelet in the number 4 Hexis Aston Martin. Pierre-Bryce Maynard then lapping not quite as quickly as Raffaele Giammarea ahead of him, and he's trying to make up 2.8 seconds, but he's struggling to do that, and the gap between the leaders is down again. It is now down to 6.9 seconds. So Marcus Paltler doing laps in the 1:43s. We had Baz Linders doing laps in the high 41s, so the car is not as quick in the hands of the Finn at the moment. And Nico Verdonk is getting closer and closer all the time. There's the leading BMW, and let's just see whether we can see. Yes, there in the background, there's the chasing Ferrari. He's getting closer and closer all the time. Another 2/10 pullback in this first sector alone. So Nico Verdonk doing his usual impressive job in this car, and he's getting closer to Marcus Paltela. And Paltela, of course, is very, very well regarded, both in GT3 and GT1 terms. Very experienced driver is the Finn, who's done much of his racing in Belgium. Came out of karting through the Finnish Touring Car Championship and the German Carrera Cup, but had many, many years in Belcar, raced in the European Touring Car Championship briefly. He's driven in French GT and in the Le Mans Series, in FIA GT1 and GT3, you name it, he's driven in it. And that car now has put a lap on the Nissan. You'll see there is 59, which is the McLaren back in the race, albeit now 32nd, many laps down in its test session effectively now, with Alvaro Parente at the wheel, 81 getting out of the way, which is now Daniel Debruer, the wheel of the Porsche. Christian Keld has started. Sector 2 time, a full second gained by Nico Verdonk. He's absolutely flying in number 1 now. And the Mark VDS team, I would imagine, are going to be a little bit concerned about this, because the lead that Bas Leinders had worked to build over his first stint is rapidly being whittled away. Stefan Ortelli has still got the fastest lap of the race to his name. And whoops, putting a wheel on the grass there. That was the Alvaro Parente McLaren, I think it was, just going into turn 1 and almost getting away from him. He had done a personal best middle sector of that last lap, so certainly Parente is trying almost too hard there. Nico Verdonk now is 5.7 seconds adrift. That is all of the race leader. Martin Matchker is falling away in 3rd place now, being caught a little bit by Greg Franchi, the championship leader, don't forget, in 4th place in number 33 Audi, also creeping into the picture now. Yet another car that's becoming one to watch now is number 2, which has got Paul van Splunderen at the wheel, the sister car to number 1 you're looking at. 2 personal bests in the sectors, and van Splunderen running 2nd in the Pro-Am Cup behind Franck Morel. So they are on the same lap. Important, therefore, that those two get together for a battle as far as van Splunderen is concerned. At any rate, he's lapping quicker by over a second a lap than Franck Morel. There's so much to look for in this race. Andrina Guga, incidentally, is finally pitted out of her GT4 class lead. So number 40, Marcus Paltela leading Nico Verdonk. Then we have 29, Martin Matchker in 3rd place, and Maxime Martin has yet to drive number 40. Before he does, let's hear from him with Haley. We will hopefully hear from Haley and from Maxime Martin shortly, once a small gremlin has been dispatched. But there's the car, Marcus Paltela leading the way. Now, last time, 5.7 seconds was the gap between the top 2. This time, over the line, let's see what the gap is. In Sector 1, it was down. In Sector 2, it had gone up. In Sector 3, it's down. So the gap is 5.4 seconds in real terms over the timing line. Nico Verdonk is still catching, but now not by quite the same chunks that he was doing earlier on. Martin Matchker, it is, still running in 3rd place in number 29. And of course now also Nico Verdonk has still got quite a bit of traffic to try to work a way through. In the first sector of this lap, Nico Verdonk, because he is in traffic, has lost time. So he's fallen away just a little bit therefore. There's number 1, Nico Verdonk there, the Belgian driver, trying to bring down a margin of 5.4 seconds, trying to work his way through traffic as well. And David Brabham still in 11th place. His next target is Gilles Vandelay. He's lapping much, much quicker than the Aston Martin. Last time through, Brabs was 3 seconds a lap quicker. He's got to make up 22 seconds to break into the top 10 on the first outing for the Nissan GTR GT3. There is Andrina Guga still in the pit lane in the 62 Lotus that was leading GT4, but that's going to be all shuffled around when that car rejoins the race, because potentially Jordan Tresson in the Nissan 370Z will go ahead. Right, there was the leader, and there, the 3rd of the cars you're looking at, and a spin for Alvaro Parente ahead of Nico Verdonk. Thankfully the McLaren spins out of the way, but the Portuguese driver rotates, coming down towards the end of the lap. Big lose under braking. And Alvaro Parente, I think, has stalled. He's going to try and fire up the engine. He does so now. So Alvaro Perret rejoins. Is he going to pit? Is he going to carry on? Let's see what he decides to do. Got to get back on the road first of all, and then he carries on. So he's going to complete the lap despite that rotation. Over the timing line then now goes 59. As I say, it's many laps down anyway after the lengthy pit stop earlier, but poor Alvaro Perret having that spin. And Nico Verdonk, glad he wasn't impeded by all of that. The gap goes up to 6.2 seconds as well between them. So we've got the cars on lap 51, and we are just about at the halfway mark. We've had the first 90 minutes of the race completed. There's the BMW M3, the GT4 spec car, now with, at the wheel of it, Raffaele Sangiolo, and there David Brabham battling with Nico Verdonk. Now, doesn't really want to be battling with him because he's been getting out of the way. He is a lap down, effectively, on the leading cars. So, number one, Nico Verdonk wants to get past the back marker, but David Brabham doing his level best to stay ahead and at the same time close, as he is doing, on Gilles Vannelet. And eventually Nico Verdonk lines up to have a go on the inside coming into turn 15, wriggles his way through, gets past the big Nissan there, which is a fairly imposing car. It's a big size. Out of the chicane hops the Ferrari. Nico Verdonk then comes through. Last time that gap had gone up to 6.2, it's up to 7.3 seconds now, so falling away, possibly because of traffic, is Nico Verdonk, but also now the lap times of Marcus Paltela starting to look a little bit more competitive, not on a Bas Leinder's pace, it must be said, but it is the first time that Paltela has driven this car, so first time he's raced it, so he's perhaps to be forgiven for not being quite as quick as Bas Leinder's. Into the pit lane has just come Alvaro Perret once more after his spin in the McLaren. Meantime, the Sector 1 time this lap through a gain of 6/10, would you believe, Verdonk against Paltela. So traffic getting in the way of Marcus Paltela a little bit, and it has a negative effect for him. Perret once more comes in, more fuel put into the McLaren. The car of Klaus Hummel, which had its problems earlier on as well, still circulating. Now there is 63, which now becomes the leading GT4 class car. Jordan Tresson at the wheel of the Nissan leads the category from the number 62 Lotus, now with Matthias Gamauff at the wheel, and third in the class becomes number 70 with Leo Mansell at the wheel. So shuffling all round in the GT4 category. Over the line goes the Audi there, you can see. The GT3 Audi R8 then in the hands now of Bert Langin, looking as good as new. They put that new front bodywork section on the car. The problem is, though, that it's many laps adrift now. 32 has just completed 47 laps of the race. The leader has completed 52, just over the line. Now, Martin Matchka is in third place still, but he's falling further and further away from the race leaders. How far ahead is he of 33 Greg Franchi? Far enough. Matt Griffin trying to work his way back into contention as well there. Number 50, Matt Griffin, who is a lap down on the leader because of the time lost early on with Jack Gerber at the wheel. So it's now up to Matt to just keep going the only way he knows, which is flat out. And it's fascinating to gauge his lap times against one or two of those other Ferraris around it. That last lap was a 43.6. At the moment, the best laps are being offered up in the 42s by Raffaele Giammaria, for example, and also that by Paul van Splunteren, but that is only when you get a clear lap, and they are few and far between at the moment with all of this traffic around, that's for sure. '59 McLaren in its garage does not bode well. Disappointing in the background with his arms folded, you can see Andrew Coccodi, who is responsible for not just driving but also putting the team together, and he and Chris Goodwin, as McLaren's chief development driver, have done a lot of work on the road car MP412C and very much on this race car as well. And Andrew, a bit like Mikael Bartels, further down the pit lane, player manager in a sense. He drives but he also oversees the team. There is the number 20 Ferrari then, now Franck Morel at the wheel, 5th place. Ludovic Badet's good first stint. Franck Morel and Jean-Luc Boberlic not as quick as Ludovic Badet, so that car in danger of losing more places before the end of the race. Leading at the moment the Pro-Am Cup, this car, but it's on the same lap as Paul van Splunteren. Now, the gap between the two of them is round about the 8-second mark, so it is certainly possible that this car is going to lose what was an enormous class lead in that first stint. To be fair to Paul van Splunteren, he has also done a very good job of bringing the number 2 Ferrari back into the picture, Nick Homerson having driven it early on. BMW versus Porsche versus Lotus here, as the Raffaele Sangiolo driven M3 tries to hang on to its 26th position. Blue flags being waved as they are just about every corner by the marshals now. Number 70 Lotus goes through. Leo Mansell now second in GT4 and trying to close on the class-leading Nissan. Number 20 Franck Morel goes over the timing line, and he in turn is now being caught. The gap down to 3.4 seconds between him and Patrice Goela. Morel getting caught up a little bit in the traffic. Now let's find out about McLaren's. Haley has managed to catch up with Andrew Cocconi in the pit lane.
Andrew, what's the reason for number 59 being in the garage?
We're not entirely sure. We've had a problem since the beginning of the race. We had lack of power, a bit of a problem with the car. We've made a few changes now to try and fix it. I believe it's a sensor problem. It's something quite simple, but it's proving a little bit difficult to find. So it's one of those things, but you know, we're in development of the car, so we need to use the track time to continue running. So we'll fix it and get it back out there.
And after testing this week, it was certainly looking positive for the McLarens.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the car's been going really well, been very reliable and going really well, so it's frustrating for it to happen now, but such is development with a new car. That's the way it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Off the road, Patrice Goela, big impact as you can see in the Ferrari. So that was the car that Julien Jousse had brought up from the back of the grid, 35th to 4th, and I'm afraid that Patrice Goela, who is normally a pretty safe pair of hands, very experienced, very successful French GT racer, has gone off the road, coming out of the Adelaide hairpin, and a lot of damage straight away. He's out of that car, you saw it bounce off the wall, and so Sofrev has lost one of its cars, and Patrice Goela walks away, jumps clear of the barrier. Big disappointment then. That, as I was saying earlier on, after the way that Julien Jousse was driving it, was a car that could well have been on for a podium finish. Not anymore. It's on for a big repair job instead. And so, out of the car, out of the race, Patrice Goela. Big disappointment. That puts now up into 6th overall Paul van Splunteren, which also brings him nearer to his class rival, because he's going to be the next car to catch, Franck Morel. So the race order is Marcus Paltler ahead of Nico Verdonk, and that gap is 6.4 seconds. In 3rd place is Martin Matchker ahead of Greg Franchi. Franck Morel is 5th, now Van Splunteren 6th. Raffaele Giammaria up to 7th. In 8th place, Pierre-Bryce Maynard. 9th and 10th are Gaëtan Vigil, Vanelay and David Brabham. Breaks into the top 10 then now, as up towards the yellow flag zone goes Paul van Splunteren. The number 2 Ferrari, driven by the Dutch Porsche dealer. And explaining exactly what he did wrong to all and sundry is there Patrice Goela. So the Ferrari is out of the race, and with its bodywork and suspension damage, that's the end of the day as far as car 10 is concerned. Leader goes through. Last lap was a 1:43 then for Marcus Paltler, and Nico Verdonk looking closer to the eye. That brings the gap down by over a second. It's now 5.4 between Paltler and Verdonk. Different middle stint though, isn't it? If you go back to the start of the race, when we had 3 cars arguing over the race lead and battles raging on everywhere, this middle stint has still got plenty of things happening, but it's rather more to do with strategy and gaps and different pace of drivers than the wheel-to-wheel racing we had early on. But again, it's all part of the intrigue that goes with these 3-hour races in the Blancpain Endurance Series. 10 different brands represented on the grid for this race, and 2 of them, BMW and Ferrari, now starting to get closer for the race lead, and that battle developing all the time. Having said that, Verdonk losing a little bit of ground in the first sector of this lap. Paltler working his way through traffic. Grabs another gear, powering his way around the 56th lap of what's going to be round about the 99 to 100 mark, given the pace that they're doing, assuming we don't have any other safety car periods. And of course the other thing to bear in mind is that the sun will be setting before much longer, and the last element of the race will be run in the darkness. So we've heard from Jerome Policon, the happy man once, now it's a rather unhappy Jerome in the pits.
Jerome, sadly, Patrice have had some issues out there. What's happened with the car?
I saw on the windscreen that he went off near Adelaide, so I don't know if it's a mechanical problem or he did a mistake. Unfortunately, the car didn't restart, so we'll wait a few minutes, but I think it's over.
Thank you.
So Jerome Policon walks away to see if there's any more information coming about that car. And let's have a look. Contact. And that, by the look of it, was the BMW that tripped up Andrew Kirkcaldy at Spa. Different driver, admittedly, but same car, that he's now making a bit of a name for itself by getting in the way of competitive GT3 cars. So they're the Ferrari team talking to the scrutineers. And as out of the race then is number 10. It was Patrice Gouillard trying to work his way through traffic. Raffaele Sangiolo getting in the way, tagging the Ferrari and spitting Gouillard off the road. 63 back into the pit lane. That's the GT4 leading Nissan. Jordan Tresson brought it in. Leaves the pit lane now. So that, I think, was a bit early for that to be a routine stop. So possibly something for Haley to investigate there. Why the RJN Motorsport team, Bob Neville's team, brought the Nissan in? Or why did the driver feel it necessary to come in? Question. The car back into the race then now, as the leading BMW, a slow last lap. Is that traffic or is that a problem? Because the gap has come down to 3.2 seconds now. So the gap is coming down all the time. And it's come down by another 4/10 in the middle sector of this lap. Well, you can see that certainly Paltela is being held up in traffic, but before long, if it carries on like this, then Nico Verdonck's got a chance of going for the race lead. It's number 4, which is Gilles Vanelay, getting in the way a little bit of the race leader. That's the 9th place car, incidentally, that's about to be lapped. Through they go. The gap is down to 1.9 now, so the gap continues to tumble between the top two. We had it at 11.6 seconds when Marcus Paltela took over the leading BMW, and with the pace of Verdonck, and to be fair, a bit of traffic getting in the way of Paltela, the gap is down to 1.9 seconds. The number 1 Ferrari then in the hands of Nico Verdonck, lapping quicker than at any other time, because that last lap was the car's best of the race, flashing the headlights at Gilles Vanelay to say, come on, get out of the way, I'm on this lead lap as well, don't want to get held up behind the Aston Martin, run by Hexis, that runs in 9th place. Well, let's hear what Baz Linders thinks about all of this. He's in the pit, so too is Haley Coxon.
Baz, unfortunately, Marcus seems to be getting catched by the Ferrari. Can he hold it off?
Well, it will be quite difficult to stay in front of the Ferrari. Nico Verdonck is a good driver. The car is also goes quite well. So even if we are second, it's not a problem. If he just keeps close to Nico, it will be good, because after this we have Maxime Martin in the car, so that should be okay.
Thank you.
So the car from a Belgian team being caught by a Belgian driver, the Finn, being caught by the Belgian Nico Verdonck, and they've had to work their way past the wayward BMW of Sangiolo, or at least the leader has. The Ferrari now tries to dive past, and whether drivers are being told by their teams just to treat that car with a bit of caution after Gouillard got tripped up by it, I don't know. But certainly now, Paltela, having been caught last lap by Verdonck, was caught in sector 1 but pulled away in sector 2 because of the back marker against the Ferrari. The gap then is 1.4 seconds, so it's still a gain for Nico Verdonck. An hour and 17 minutes remain. In other words, 17 minutes before you get to the next round of pit stops, there or thereabouts. So we have then this race that began with 35 cars from the 37 entries. The gap has been tumbling between the top two, and you can see the way that it's been brought down and down and down, the gain per lap from Nico Verdonck, and now back markers for both of the top two to work their way past. Marcus Paltela nips through on the inside at the Adelaide hairpin. In the first sector, he was just fractionally quicker by 38 thousandths. That was Nico Verdonck. Verdonck now getting caught up just a little bit by the Lamborghini, which I think is the Fabien Machal car. Stefan Ortelli, just to re-emphasise the point from his earlier dramatic stint, has been the quickest man in the race so far. Elbows out, rather forceful, to the detriment of the car's chances, but he was the quickest man. 1:41.1. Now the times 42s, 43s. Now let's hear from Frank Kekela, because he of course did the first stint in number 1. Nico Verdonck doing a great job.
Frank, can Nico hold off the BMW? Can he fight? Can he get pole position? Can he take the win? Will you finish on the podium?
Well, Nico did a great job so far, and I think he can take the BMW, which is Paltala. But Maxime Martin is a good driver. We need to see if we take him, if we can hold him then. But even though P2 is very good for us, then we are back in the championship game, and I'm so far really happy, and let's see what the night brings.
Thank you.
Yeah, the night being the last 15 minutes or so, I think, that are going to be around in the darkness. It will be going dark, of course, but you'll probably get 15 minutes of actual nighttime racing. Although, of course, now that the weather conditions have improved, it's going to stay like that a little bit longer, certainly compared to yesterday when it was fairly dank and drizzly in this part of France. The Magny-Cours circuit, the most recent home of the French Grand Prix in the Nevers region. And the lead gap down again, because this time sector 1 is the best first sector that number 1 has done in the race. Last time around the gap was 1.4 seconds, and there is Jean-Carl Vernet at the back of the garage waiting his turn, talking to Frank Kekler. There's quite a lot of pressure about to be applied here to JK Vernet, but I think he could rise to the occasion. He's not raced one of these cars yet, qualified at Spa, never got to drive the car there because it retired early on. And Marcus Paltala then is being hunted down by the number 1 Ferrari, Nico Verdonk, and that's the number 2 car off the road. Paul van Splunteren, having just lost a place to number 9 Raffaele Giammaria, has had a moment, and significantly what that means is he's lost time against his class rival at the last chicane. He's had that spin, lost time to Franck Morel, so he was catching number 20 Ferrari, the surviving Sofrev car, but now that gap has opened up. Van Splunteren loses a place overall, but he loses time against the class leader. That's what he really will have been caught out by. That's the real drama for him. So Van Splunteren now trying to not really worry about the Porsche, because that's running in the Pro class. He wants to get back onto terms with number 20 in the Pro-Am Cup if he can, Franck Morel's car. You're on board with Paltala in the middle sector. Again, he was being caught by the Ferrari at the end of the lap. That gap, oh so close to being under a second. It is 1.056 seconds now. So from 11, it's come down to a gnats over the 1 second mark. And the way that Nico Verdonk is going, he's going to be on the tail of the BMW before much longer, isn't he? Martin Matschke still third. Now behind him is the number 33 Greg Franchi Audi, but they are doing very similar lap times. That gap isn't really coming down much. Raffaele Giammaria is certainly catching Franck Morel for 5th place. That's another one to look for. But these two race leaders with the gap down by another 1/10 of a second, going up towards the Adelaide hairpin, getting closer and closer all the time now. Franck Morel, meantime, at the last corner is about to lose out, I think, to Raffaele Giammaria for 5th place, but that's the lead battle you're looking at. Marcus Paltala for BMW, for Marc VDS, ahead of Nico Verdonk. Here comes then the battle between Franck Morel and Raffaele Giammaria. They go across the line, the margin between them being just 0.4 of a second, and Raffaele, who is a much quicker driver, many years of success in single-seater racing, right on the tail of the French gentleman racer, almost pushes in out of Estoril there. And so Raffaele Giammaria, who's raced Italian sports prototypes, A1 GP, Formula Renault 3.5, Formula 3000, Formula 3, you name it, goes darting up the inside as they come towards the hairpin and into Adelaide. The Porsche is going to go through, and that gives him now 5th place. Raffaele Giammaria then in this car, recovering after the biffs and bangs it took when Gianluca Roda was at the wheel early on. Now goes up into 5th spot and straight away pulls away from Franck Morel. The leaders go over the line. The gap is 7/10 of a second now. That's all. 0.7 of a second between the top 2 cars with 1 hour and 12 minutes remaining. But there's still much that can pan out of this race, as through Estoril go the 2 leading cars. Number 1, Nico Verdonk, chasing down Marcus Paltala, and so far everything is working as he wants it here. He's getting closer, and that car looks to have the advantage over the BMW. But then, as Bas Leinders was suggesting, you put Maxime Martin into the BMW. Well, we know that he's a quick driver and he knows the car. Then you've got Jean-Carl Vernet to get into the Ferrari. Something of an unknown. Yes, Vernet is a quick driver, but we don't know how he's going to fare in a GT car. But I would imagine, given his ability, it ain't going to be a problem for him. Now, is this lead going to change before the next round of pit stops that is round about 12 minutes away? The number 1 Ferrari, remember, with Frank Kekler at the wheel, a little bit out of sequence. It stopped early, but this is becoming a long stint by Nico Verdonk, and a very impressive stint, to be fair to him. but how much longer can that car go on this tank of fuel? And indeed, how far can it go on its final tank of fuel? Can it avoid a splash and dash near the end? I made the point earlier that you can't really splash and dash. You can do the splashing, but they can't be that rapid a pit stop because of the seatbelt regulation. So there, the way the top 6 looks: BMW, Ferrari, then it's Audi, Porsche and Ferrari to round out the top 6. Duarte Felix da Costa's Lamborghini has just come in. Philippe Brodkeren's car, the Porsche number 19, is in as well, having had a class win in the Spa 24 Hours. Over the line go the leaders, and the gap up to 0.8 of a second, in fact, there. Marcus Paltela is trying to respond. He's just done his personal best speed out of the chicane at the end of the lap. So trying now to fend off the Ferrari. And just look at the way coming out of Estoril that the gap suddenly widens, as though Paltela had had a bit of a wake-up call, almost too late, but suddenly he's got the message that that car bearing down on you needs to be repelled somehow, and the gap widens just a little bit. And in fact, Paltela has just done the best first sector of anybody in the race. Out of nowhere, almost, having been caught for many, many laps, suddenly Paltela pulls out his finger and manages to do the best first sector. That said, Verdonk does a personal best in the first sector, so they're still together. But Marcus Paltela, I suspect over the radio, has been given a real hurry up here. Well, let's hear from the next driver of number 1. J.K. Verne is with Haley.
Giancarlo, how nervous are you getting into the Ferrari?
Yeah, in 3 laps normally I will take my round, so we'll see. Nico is doing an unbelievable job. He came back from 11 seconds, so it's just great, and we'll try to be on podium. The most important is for Frank, for the championship, to be in podium. And we'll see, but for the moment it's a really exciting race, so I hope it will continue until the end.
Thank you.
Now, the point he makes about Frank Heckler and the championship is a valid one, because Greg Franchi is the man that leads on 64.5 points. Frank Heckler has 45 points. A few of the drivers ahead of him, like Matthew Sekstrom and Timo Scheider, only did the Spa 24 Hours, but also between him and Franchi, as the leaders come out of the chicane, are Bert Langin, Stefan Ortelli and Philippe Albuquerque, who are going to score badly at best in this race after the car's delays early on. So it's important here to help Heckler get as many points as possible within his class, within the championship. The leaders 6/10 apart over the line that time through. And Nico Verdonk then, another driver doing a great job. We saw what Philippe Salaquada did earlier. Julien Jousse also was one of the stars of the early part of the race. Well, now it's Verdonk who takes up attention, getting quicker all the while. That last lap, a real curiosity by Paltela, having done the best first sector of anybody in the race. Couldn't match it in sectors 2 and 3, and the gap came down at the end of the lap anyway. So Nico Verdonk is back on the tail of the race-leading BMW. 2 of them making their way now then from the Adelaide hairpin down towards Nürburgring, that chicane. Avoid the barriers in the middle, and we've got 33 now down the pit road. So Greg Franchi, the championship leader, comes in and is going to be therefore replaced in that car by Marcel Fassler. Back to Haley.
Max, with your experience in the BMW, you must be feeling confident stepping into the car now.
Yeah, we have quite a good experience with 24 Spa. We didn't do a good race, but I hope we can be good here for the end of the race. It's 1 hour, still 1 hour, so it's quite long. We will see.
So Maxime Martin there, suited and booted, ready to take over the BMW. Will that lead when it comes into the pit lane? Can Marcus Paltela fend off Nico Verdonk? How much longer will he stay out for? Because certainly he's been caught. Are they going to replace him with Maxime Martin, who knows the car better and could be quicker? Not this time. They're not. The 2 leading cars then are going to be nose to tail. We're almost having a repeat of the early laps of the race with the leading cars tied together, but over the line the BMW has been a constant within the leading trio all through the race. But number 1, it's only in this middle stint of the race that it has become part of the leading battle. Over the line the gap was 0.569 of a second. In other words, the gap was down then between those leading cars for yet another lap in succession. The Ferrari getting closer to the BMW. Still looks like the BMW has strengths at certain parts of the lap. Up now towards the Adelaide hairpin for the 65th time. So the BMW that leads, Marcus Paltela at the wheel, being caught by Nico Verdonk in the first sector. The gap had gone up just a little bit, and that seems to be, at least over the last couple of laps, where the BMW is slightly stronger than the Ferrari. Now Verdonk, of course, has been doing a longer stint than has Paltela, so his tyres are now not as good as those on the BMW. And he's also going to be perhaps a little bit weary, as you've just heard J.K. Vernet saying, Jean-Carl saying it's been a superb job by his co-driver Nico Verdonk, and that's absolutely right. It's been a long stint, so driver and tyres perhaps not at their freshest anymore. But that is not today, Verdonk. And now, look, they've got the BMW M3 to negotiate. Sangiola gets out of the way. Verdonk thinks about the inside going up towards Chateau d'Eau, but he can't find a way past there. So as the leading cars accelerate once more down towards the completion of the lap, we've just had Leo Mansell come into the pit lane to give way to Greg. And Verdonk has a cheeky look towards the inside, coming down towards the Complex du Lycée. Can't find a way past there. It's going to be another 6 minutes or so, really, before the teams want these cars in. But bear in mind that the #1 Ferrari was the first car to make its first mandatory stop. And that was well before the hour mark, so it's had a long run on this tank of fuel in the middle stint. And as I make the point, Verdonk has done a long stint, and so have those tyres. And maybe that's why now it's becoming just a little bit harder for him to stay on the back of the BMW, because that most recent set of Michelins may well be just starting to lose their edge. Maxime Martin then is ready, and it looks, because they're bringing their equipment to the pit lane, as though it's going to be in this time then. So that means it'll be a slightly shorter stint from Paltner. Remember that Bas Leinders was one of the last drivers in at the end of the first stint that the cars had. And now Marcus Paltner will give the car to Maxime Martin, but it was 40 laps done by Bas Leinders. It is certainly not going to be 40 laps done by Marcus Paltner. A spin there we have had from the 81 Porsche. Daniel Debrouet at the wheel, and the car 14th when it looped. Now 33 Audi, I told you had been in. Marcel Fassler has taken it over at 8th. The car has rejoined, and it's significant because that is the car of the championship leader Greg Franchi. This is the lead battle, which is equally significant because we want to know who's going to come out on top, and it is just Paltner keeping Verdonk at bay. Now there is the Lotus still in the pit lane. This is number 70 of the Mansells and the Marc VDS Racing team, whose car comes in chased by the Vita 4-1 Ferrari. So the top two come down the pit lane. Marc VDS a bit concerned that that car is going to be in their way, might block it. Let's just see. There's the BMW. Now the lead could change in the pit lane, never mind on the track. So it's now not just the drivers, it is down to the pit crews to turn the cars around as rapidly as possible and back into the race. And the BMW is, for the moment, still parked behind the Lotus. Down in pit lane, they're getting into the car, is Maxime Martin, son of Jean-Michel Martin, multiple Spa 24-hour winner, multiple Belgian touring car champion, somebody who still races on occasions in historic events, and indeed did this year's Spa 24. Other end of the pit lane, Jean-Carl Vernet gets strapped into the #1 Vita 4-1 Ferrari. Nico Verdonk, I think, has earned himself a beer after that. That was a tremendous stint to get that car into contention. Lotus there being held at the end of the pit lane. There the new wheels and tyres going on the number 40 BMW, but can that go down the pit lane ahead still of the #1 Ferrari? It's all down to the speed of the pit crews here, and only now do the tyres go onto the Ferrari. So it looks as though the BMW team, Marc VDS Racing, are ahead in terms of where they are in completing the pit stop, but then that car's got to drive down the pit lane. That's almost at the top end of the pit lane, whereas the Ferrari's at the bottom. But I reckon the BMW is going to keep its lead here because the Ferrari is still up on its jack. So Jean-Carl Vernet is going to have to do some hard work here. Lotus look being pushed backwards up the pit lane now with a problem. We'll worry about that in a moment because we've got the leading BMW back on track, and considering they came in nose to tail, this has been a longer pit stop by the Ferrari team. But one would suggest they've had to put a lot more fuel into that car. So there is number 40 leading the way, and from being nose to tail when they came into the pit lane, now Jean-Carl Vernet has got quite a bit of work to do to bring that gap down all over again. So a short first stint, a long middle stint, whereas a shorter middle stint in the BMW. I reckon that some of that time has been lost by Vita 4-1 because they had to put a lot more fuel in the car. There's number 9 Porsche then in the pit lane, Raffaele Gianmaria 4th when he brought the car in. And it's going to be Paolo Roberti to take it over. Well, as we saw at Monza, Paolo Roberti always shines, and despite the fact that he hurt his hand when he crashed at Spa, he's still a quick driver and is going to be a man to watch in this final stint. We are not quite into the last hour of the race. One or two of these teams pitting a bit earlier than they would ideally like, away from the hour mark, and down the pit road goes the Porsche, as in comes number 4 Gilles Vanelay now, and that is about to become another star car, number 4, because it is about to be taken over by Frédéric Makovici. So Martin Matschke then, on the most recent round of pit stops, takes over the lead because he has yet to have his pit stop to give the car over to Michael Bartels. Don't discount this from being a winning car either. Maybe it's a bit too far back on number 40 now. We need to see what lap times Martin does relative to Vanelay and also to Bartels.
You had quite a battle on your hands there with the Ferrari, but you brought it home in first. Is Max going to be able to deliver it and turn into a podium finish?
It wasn't that tight. He just caught me at the end of my stint. I was struggling a little bit. First time driving this car on used tires, so it was like a learning period. But I think we won quite a lot on the pit lane, so thanks for the guys. They did a great job, and Maxim is now ahead, and I think he can keep it.
Thank you.
So Marcus Paltela then, having done a good job to keep the lead of the race. Well, now 29 Ferraris leading, that's Martin Matschke, but as I say, he's got to make a pit stop yet to put Michael Bartels into the car. So it's when this next sequence of pit stops has all panned out and we can see what the gaps are and the relative pace of drivers, that it's going to become ever more fascinating. So there through is 29, Martin Matschke, whose last lap was a 44, and he gets past Raffaele Sangiolo's BMW M3. Now behind him, number 20, Franck Morel runs second, Maxime Martin runs third, Jean-Carl Vernet, in fact, has got quite a bit of traffic to work a way past because he has come out behind Paul van Splundteren and Pierre-Bryce Meyner. Okay, they've both got to pit yet. Now how much longer does Matschke stay out for? He doesn't. He's in now, and that's going to put Michael Bartels into the car. So in comes 29, and Martin Matschke comes down the pit road then. So as he does so, now the question is, can Bartels get out ahead of Jean-Carl Vernet and retake second position? Of course, this was the leading car early on when Philippe Salaquada did his sterling job, but now it's the old pro, the old maestro himself, Michael Bartels, to get into that car. We have now just under an hour of the race to go, and the sun is setting, the light is fading, the headlights are getting brighter. There goes the leading BMW then, that is going to get the lead back again, or if you like, retain its lead on the pit stops. But for second place, can car 29 jump ahead of the number 1 Ferrari? That's what we need to look for next. So there is 29 in the pits, the fuel is in. That means they can now put the new tyres on. Michael Bartels, of course, already strapped in, ready to go. And it still feels odd, doesn't it, talking about Bartels in a car that's not green and black. It's the red and black colours that were carried on this car in the Spa 24 Hours. And the Vita 4.1 Ferrari has had 3 of its tyres and wheels changed, and that is a troubled Lamborghini, and it is 45 Andrea Barlesi, having taken the car over from Frédéric Fatien. So this is the last stint for that car, and it looks like it's a very short last stint, like it's just come to an end. Bartels leaves the pit lane then, and Maxime Martin in the BMW has just done the best first sector of anybody in the race, so he's being told to push, and he's very much pushing now. Jean-Carl Vernet losing almost a second against him in that first sector. So Vernet, of course, who doesn't know the car anywhere near as well as Martin knows the BMW, is in danger now of losing a lot of ground, whereas what can Michael Bartels do? At the next crossing of the timing line at the end of the lap, we'll have the true order, and we'll start to look at the gaps as well between the cars into this last 58 minutes of the race. So Michael Bartels, who won at Navarra with Frank Kekler and Nico Verdonk, takes over 29, but you can see he's the best part of a lap away from the BMW. It's looking very good, isn't it, for number 40 here, even though Marcus Paltela was caught in his stint. Over the timing line comes the BMW now, and Maxime Martin pushing on, and he's just done that car's best lap of the race, in fact, and the best lap of anybody in the race, a 1:41.108. So Maxime Martin, the new fastest driver, and that's on his first flying lap effectively. So Maxime now is going to be very hard to stop. Now, it is fair to say that Marc VDS do have their occasional mechanical woes, but they also have had punctures in the past, costing them in the Blancpain Endurance Series. At Monza, for example, they lost a potential win with punctured tyres. So can they keep out of trouble? Can everything hold together for them? Franck Morel has just pitted, and that means that this car is about to go into the lead of the Pro-Am Cup. Paul van Splundteren at the wheel, despite his spin. Pierre-Bryce Meyner comes into the pit lane now also, and that's going to give the car to Julian Rodriguez for the last stint. Paolo Roberti has just done the best middle sector of anybody in the race, so now that you've got, in some cases, the quickest driver getting into the car for the last hour, the race starts to take on yet another another complexion. Matt Griffin has just pitted out of 8th place in the number 50 Ferrari. So Maxime Martin leads the way. And Jean-Carl Vernet has managed to stay ahead, I think I'm right in saying, of Michael Bartels. So let's see at the end of this next lap what the gap's going to be between number 40 and number 1. There is Jean-Carl Vernet. Kart racer of note, went to race in the Formula Renault Campus Series, had his spell in Formula Renault. In the A1 GP Series, he drove for France, and in Formula 3, he was a Red Bull contracted driver in the Formula 3 Euro Series. Last year, he went to the Indy Light Series, won first time out on the streets of St. Petersburg, won the title, but then didn't have the budget to progress any further. So he's using what funds he has to come into sports car racing now, and to see whether or not this is going to be an area of the sport that is going to reap dividends for him. But certainly Jean-Carl Vernet, in single-seater terms, has been very impressive indeed. Let's see how he makes this transition now to GT cars. Teammate Van Splunderen has just pitted, so the race leader with a personal best final sector last time through for Maxime Martin goes through, having just completed 70 laps. Nico Verdonk's car then, running in 2nd place. Let's hear from the Belgian with Haley.
Nico, you fought hard to close the gap with the BMW. Unfortunately, you lost some time in the pits.
Yeah, that's right. We had some trouble with the mechanic who put on the wrong tyre, and there we lost quite a lot of. And there was some confusion, unfortunately, and that's where we lost most of the time at the pit stop. So yeah, it's a shame because we were coming strong back to the Z4, but now yeah, we have to put all our hopes on Jean-Carl to finish the job. So
thank you.
So that explains it. Wasn't just the extra amount of fuel, it was a wheel going on and then having to be replaced by another one, the mechanic getting the wrong tyre on the car. So Jean-Carl Vernet's last lap was a 43.3. That's over 2 seconds slower than Maxime Martin. Okay, Jean-Carl doesn't know the Ferrari as well, but I can't see him closing that gap, I'm afraid. What we are having to look at next, though, is the situation for 4th and 5th places. Marcel Fassler has come out ahead on the pit stops of Michael Bartels. So number 29 Ferrari not yet lapping as quickly as the Audi, but that means that it was a slow stop also from 29, doesn't it? So the Vita 4-1 pit stops have not exactly been stellar. Number 1, you just heard, has been delayed in the pits. 29 Michael Bartels lost a place of the Audi in the pits. Let's see what happens to number 2. That's in the pits at the moment. Number 9 Paolo Roberti is currently 7th. And at the moment, he is the 2nd fastest man on the circuit. Only Paolo and Maxime Martin are lapping in the 141s at the moment. Roberti, of course, is 2 or 3 laps into his stint now, so for him, everything's up to temperature. He's happy with the car, he knows what it's doing, whereas 1 or 2 other drivers fresh into the cars are still playing themselves in. But Paolo Roberti is going to gain ground before the end, that's for sure. Just ahead on the road, you will see the number 35 Nissan. And that car now, David Brabham at the wheel, is in 6th place overall. But it has to make another pit stop, yeah? It's got to make its 2nd mandatory stop. So Maxime Martin leading the way. Now, is his pace going to be good enough to hang on to this advantage for another 53 minutes? So far, the answer would appear to be yes. He, last time around, did another best lap of the race, 141.021. And so this car may have had a moderately quiet middle stint with Palser at the wheel, but Maxime Martin now is going very rapidly indeed. He's building up the advantage. Just wonder what Jean-Carl Vernet can do behind it. Well, that last lap that he did was almost a second quicker than his previous one. So it's now suggesting that as he gets more confident, he's able to go quicker. But the trouble is he's well over half a minute back. He needs a safety car or Martin to have a problem. In other words, it's only now going to be a drama for this BMW, I think it's fair to say, that will allow anybody to catch, because remember, Roberti and this car, the quickest 2 on the circuit, and that lap was the best of the race in the 40s, 140.763. Maxime Martin rather demoralising everybody else up and down the pit lane, because as you go into the 3rd hour of the race, fresh into the car, and he does fastest lap after fastest lap, and he pulls away. Mighty impressive. Backing up what Bas Leinders was suggesting to Haley a little while ago, that when he put Maxime Martin into the car, that he was going to go quickly. Well, I've got to say, Maxime's pace is surprising me at the moment. I didn't think he was going to go this rapidly, and it's a very impressive job that he's doing. So Maxime Martin leads the way, and he's building up the lead, because on the most recent lap through, Jean-Carl Vernet does a slow lap in the 144s. He's in danger of being caught now. Let's just see what the gap is between Jean-Carl and 1:33, which is now being driven by Marcel Fassler, 12.3 seconds. Second place could change, and therefore Audi could get ahead, which is significant for Greg Franchi in the championship. Fassler is his co-driver. Michael Bartels goes through in 4th place. That last lap was a 44.1. That's not that quick either, so I think there's more to come out of Michael when everything gets up to temperature and he gets well revved up. He was the man that was on pole position, don't forget. But it sort of now needs a safety car or a problem for the BMW to throw a lifeline to everybody else behind. You can see now that darkness is starting to fall, the light fading a little bit, and we have got 51 minutes of the race to go. Can anything unseat Maxime Martin from the race lead? There are still plenty of other drivers pushing on, and there is one of them, Marcel Fassler, hurling the Audi there through the Nürburgring chicane. This is 33. Marcel, who was a Mercedes DTM driver, but has been picked up by Audi in the last few seasons, former winner of the Spa 24 Hours, in fact, won that back in 07. And it's him catching Jean-Carl Vernet in sector 1, losing out in sector 2, but second place is becoming the battle. The leader has gone by, and Maxime Martin there does not do another best lap of the race, just a slightly slower pace. That it was a 1:41.5, still better than pretty much everybody else is doing, apart from Paolo Roberti. Now the other driver who is suddenly going very, very rapidly, gosh, what a surprise, is Fred Makoviecki in 11th place overall, number 4 Aston Martin. Fred Mako also now putting in laps in the 1:41s, although his next lap much, much slower in the 44s. Maybe that was traffic or it had a moment somewhere. Through then goes Fassler. The gap second to third, 12.6 seconds. There is Fred Makoviecki, who is a lap down on the race leaders after a relatively quiet middle stint from Gilles Vannelet in that car. David Brabham has just pitted in 35 to give way to Richard Westbrook again, and 51 Ferrari is back in. Gino Forgione, Maurizio Basso and Max Mugelli, the 3 drivers of that car. Max Mugelli shown as being the man in it at the moment, but there's a question mark over who has done the middle stint in that car. So Max Mugelli in 51, he's the quicker driver in that. Now, how's Maxime Martin getting on? Last lap was in the 41s, which is still better than those that are chasing after him. And in the classes, the Pro-Am Cup, Jean-Luc Bobelic ahead of Louis Machiels. Now, over the line has just gone Jean-Luc, who does a 43.7, and Louis Machiels is closing on him. Remember, we saw Louis Machiels do some good laps at the Spa 24 Hours until the radio went down and wasn't connected properly, and he got black flagged for not responding to a drive-through penalty board. So there is the Pro-Am Cup class leader, Jean-Luc Bobelic, who's been racing for many, many years now, and he's being chased by Louis Machiels. The gap is 10 seconds, and the gap is coming down, so there could well be a different Ferrari ahead by the end of the next hour. However, behind them, third in the class, is another car to watch, because number 80 Porsche is being driven now by Philippe Gage. Now, Philippe having his first Blancpain race of the year, but we did see him in French GT races recently, and the 1985 French Formula Ford 1600 champion, hugely experienced driver Philippe Gage, is lapping very quickly indeed, and so as Louis Machiels is catching Jean-Luc Bobelic, so also is Philippe Gage catching Louis Machiels. So it's all concertinaing up in Pro-Am, and not that far behind also is number 50 Jack Gerber back at the wheel after the earlier efforts of Matt Griffin. Now the race-leading car with an advantage now of over 12 seconds. There you can see, sorry, over 32 seconds, just to say, as that margin has increased. There you've got number 2 Paul van Splunteren to Louis Machiels after Nick Humberson started in that car. And the number 2 Ferrari then down towards the end of the lap. Let's just see what this is. Jean-Luc Bobelic has been through, done a 1:43.1. Over the line now goes Louis Magny-Cours, a 43.5, because he's a bit stuck now behind Julian Rodriguez. And this is a battle for 7th place overall. So there's not just class positions to think about for some of the drivers now. There's also the overall situation. And Louis Magny-Cours, experienced Ferrari racer, is being held up a little bit by the Hexis AMR Aston. He's another of the Vita 4-1 Ferraris, of course, here. And Louis Magny-Cours, who has raced in the Ferrari Challenge as well as in the Le Mans Series, winner of the Zolder 24 Hours a couple of years ago, now latching onto the tail of Julian Rodriguez. Now, in terms of last lap times, a 42.1 for Maxime Martin, a 42.7 for Jean-Carl Vernet, still being caught by Fassler. But Michael Bartels is perplexing me a little bit. He's only lapping in the 43s, then the 42s. The progress that is being made, such as it is negligible against the top 3. So it's almost now as though that car, despite the great effort of Philippe Salaquada earlier on, and Martin Matschke kept it up in 3rd place, is no match for the Audi. It lost time in the pits against Marcel Fassler's Audi, and it's just not responding on track either. It did get a whack early in the race, didn't it, at the Adelaide hairpin when it was knocked sideways. I just wonder whether, in the process of all of that, it's got a slight problem that's been manifesting itself over the course of the race. Now, Julian Rodriguez, in the meantime, trying to fend off the efforts of Louis Magny-Cours here. Fly splattered windscreen as the Aston Martin in 7th place comes down towards the Complexe du Lycée, up towards the chicane at the end of the lap. Louis Magny-Cours thinks about going up the inside there. That would have been pretty bold. Over the timing line goes this battle for 7th and 8th places. And Louis Magny-Cours thinks about looking on the inside towards turn 1. And now the drivers all being told that they've got to have their headlights on, so anybody that doesn't risks the wrath of the race director. But now that we get towards the nighttime aspect of the race, everybody has to have their headlights on. Many run with a ball race anyway to warn the back markers of their progress, but now it's very much a regulation in this part of the race. So for 7th and 8th places, the cars came over the line with just 0.3 of a second between them. Up towards the completion of Sector 1, Louis Magny-Cours dropping back a little bit at the split, but closing up again under braking. Maxime Martin's last lap a little bit slower in the 42s, but Jean-Carl Vernet was losing time as well. Vernet is being caught by Fassler for 2nd place, no doubt about that. That gap has come down to 9 seconds now. And this is the battle you're looking at for 7th position. Julian Rodriguez, the man that runs his own internet company, a very experienced Aston Martin racer with something like 4 seasons worth of racing in GT3 spec Astons under his belt. He's also had a brief time in the GT1 World Championship as well for Hexis last year. For how much longer can he keep Louis Magny-Cours behind him? That's the next question. Nose to tail look out of the chicane. Still Rodriguez ahead then of Louis Magny-Cours. And the gap last time we had at, what, 0.3 of a second. It's gone up just fractionally, half a second now. So Louis Magny-Cours drops away again. You have the cars looking closer and further apart, different parts of the circuit as they have their strengths and weaknesses. Well, there is the car of the championship leader. Championship leader is Greg Franchi. He's in the pit lane. So's Haley. Let's hear from them now.
Greg, as current team championship leader and driver championship is certainly looking positive for you, looking towards the end of the race.
Yes, now he's in 3rd position. He has a good position for the championships. And Marcel, you have pushed for take the 2nd position in the Jean-Carl Vernet Vita 4. And you have more points for the championships.
Thank you.
So, as Greg Franchi then, the championship leader, walks away to study the screens, he will be very, very happy to see his car 3rd. He'll be happier if it was 2nd, and even more pleased if somehow it could take the lead of the race away from the number 40 BMW. But that, for the moment, I've got to say, is looking unlikely. The chances of anybody catching Maxime Martin not looking great, although the last lap through was a 43 for Maxime, and Vernet, Fassler and Bartels doing 42s and Paolo Roberti at 41. So was that purely back markers? The answer, yes, because the next lap is in the 42s. Maxime Martin restores normality, if you like, by having a clearer lap and therefore being able to put in what you might call a proper lap time for that car, but certainly the traffic is a factor. there's Bartels, runs 4th. I can't imagine that the pole sitter is going to be over the moon about this. It is not as good as he wants it to be. So gentle with the throttle application coming out of turn 8. Frustratingly long corner that before you can get the power down again. And Bartels, look, he's being caught by Paolo Roberti. Look in the background and you'll be able to see the Porsche of the Italian driver Paolo Roberti. That gap is coming down and down. Now, I was talking about Michael Bartels earlier on, before the race started. His many championships won in recent years in GT racing. Paolo Roberti, who came via Formula 3 into touring car racing, drove the Oregon team's Multical and Alfa Romeo 156s for a number of seasons in the ETC. But he now is starting to close on Michael Bartels. There's another Alfa Romeo connection there because Michael raced in the DTM in Alfa Romeos in Jägermeister colours many moons ago. But now Ferrari and Porsche drivers respectively, the gap is coming down between them, and it's for 4th place. It's also, of course, this for a Pro Cup class battle as well. So that lap by Bartels was 4/10 slower than Paolo Roberti. So the gap comes down, but not by a great deal, but it is coming down. There is Paolo Roberti. The Porsche's last lap was a 1:41.5, quicker therefore than the leader. Jean-Carl Vernet still being caught a little bit by Marcel Fassler. We had that gap at over 9 seconds a while ago. It was 7.4 last time. Maxime Martin has just gone across the timing line, which gives you an idea. You're looking at the 4th placed and 5th placed cars coming out of Adelaide, just how big a gap that BMW has been able to build up with good stints on track and also by others having their delays in the pits. The BMW having been absolutely faultless so far. Is that tempting fate? The Porsche, of course, lost time, but they had to do a bit of repair work on it at the end of the first stint. And these things, when the cars are also evenly matched, all adds up. Any delay in the pit lane is very significant indeed. But for the Marc VDS racing team, remember that a lot of its advantage has been gained after that slow pit stop for the #1 Ferrari, plus the fact that Jean-Carl Vernet is new into the car, new into the GT race discipline. And he's just come into the pit lane. #1 Ferrari down the pit road. So Jean-Carl Vernet, who was second, is in the pits. Disaster seemingly for the #1 Vita 4-1 Ferrari. There it is. And that now means that we've got Marcel Fassler up into 2nd place. The door opens. And what's happened to the Ferrari then? Its lights come back on, but it's going nowhere in a hurry. Jean-Carl Vernet is in the pit lane. And now it's Marcel Fassler chasing the leading BMW with 51 seconds to make up. There's a bit of shaking of head. Is it electrical? Was there more? Could it be gear related? I just wonder whether that semaphore was to do with the paddle shift gearbox. Let's just see. Can't think. Yeah, he can't find a gear, can he? Just look at the hand movements. He's tapping the steering wheel as though there are no gears to be found. So it looks as though the #1 Ferrari could be a retirement here. I'm guessing it's a gearbox problem, trying to decipher what they're doing in the car and what the hand signals are, but has that cured it? Seems to have done now. Another one for Haley to go to research, but it looks as though that may have been a gearbox problem for #1. So Jean-Carl Vernet has pitted. It means that Marcel Fassler takes over 2nd place, and that is yet more points in the championship than for Greg Franchi, which is significant. But I still can't see that car catching the BMW. So we need a drama for the Marc VDS team to deprive them of their first win. And #1 is back in the race, but it's still not right, is it? It is still going slowly. I'm still leaning towards this being gear related or electric problems causing malfunctions in the gearbox. So Jean-Carl Vernet, whose baptism in GT racing has not been a happy one, has got another problem. Therefore, let's try and find out what's happened to #1. Haley, I think, has news in the pit lane, and the Ferrari limps on, but let's join Haley in the pits. Haley, what news?
Frank, unfortunately, there seems to be some issues with car #1. What's been going on?
He has problems with the downshifting. The gearbox doesn't work well, so he had to come in now. Now we try some manual gear shifting. It means he has to clutch every time he shifts down. Hopefully it works. If not, I think we have to retire. It's a shame because it was going well so far, but yeah, keep the fingers crossed that it works like that.
Thank you.
And I don't think it is working, I'm afraid, Frank, because we have the legend on this timing screen, car 1 slow on track. Now, Mikael Bartels, just to make things even worse, I'm afraid, for Vita 4-1, is about to be passed by Paolo Roberti. So one car looks like it's heading for retirement. This car has faded in the most recent stint. Philippe Salaquada, remember, was the hero of the first few laps. Mikael Bartels, I still reckon that one's got a problem as well, because its pace looks a bit ordinary, a bit undercooked in this last stint of the race. Number 2, Louis Machiels, is still trying to get himself into the lead of the class, but has got a lot of traffic between him and the class rival. So Bartels to Roberti, the gap has been coming down and down and down. Paolo Roberti nips past the Porsche there to put a lap on it, going through the Imola chicane up towards Chateau d'Eau. So it's been, as ever, a race of changing fortunes for different teams, and right now Vita 4-1, which you've got to say is normally one of the top teams in GT racing, with its pedigree in the FIA GT Championship, but they've not had that great a season. Monza gave them problems with the 458s. They had a win at Navarra, and then at Spa 3 cars they ran, 1 retired early with gearbox problems. Remember, Eric van der Poel's car. Number 2 was black flagged and had to stop, and the 3rd car that was effectively the Scuderia Vittoria drivers in a Vita 4-1 car made it to the end, but the Ferrari 458 still proving that they are a little bit prone to dramas in their first year of racing, although some teams adapting better than others. Vita 4-1 courting a Ferrari deal for next year's FIA GT World Championship. Well, it's not going to look great if they keep having problems and can't get the cars to the end of 3-hour races. But for now, 29 is still going, and now up into 3rd place. There it is, Mikael Bartels at the wheel at the Adelaide hairpin, but Paolo Roberti is, as ever, going great guns here, bringing that car back into contention with now just over half an hour of the race to go, 35 minutes remaining here. BMW Z4 leads then from the Audi in 2nd place. The gap is not quite a lap between them. It will be the fact at the moment, as that caption comes up, that they are on different laps because the Audi is yet to go over the timing line. Number 31 Lamborghini in the meantime yet to put the headlights on, and it is being warned about that. It's already been told it has to have its headlights on. All the teams are being told they must have their cars with the lights ablaze, and 31 Greg Gilbert at the wheel of it, the car having had 2 wins already in the Gentleman Trophy and leading the Gentleman Trophy in this race. If he doesn't get the headlights on, is going to be in real trouble here. So Greg Gilbert, former Peugeot 206 Spider Cup racer, driving this year also in the Eurocup Megane Trophy. He was at Silverstone last weekend. Could hit, finally headlights come on as he comes over the line. Yes, the message gets through, and as soon as he comes onto the pit straight, they come on. But do they stay on? No, seems to be the answer. So intermittent, they will work. They'll either flash on or off, or they won't stay on. But if they won't stay on, that car's going to have to be brought into the pit lane, isn't it? That'll be a black and orange flag job to bring the car in, because the cars have to have the headlights on. So now the race director will be looking at this. They'll talk to the team first, I would have thought. Lights come on. Now, do they stay? They're not exactly bright, but the lights are on just about. But compare them with the brightness of the lights behind, and look also at what's behind. Bartels 3rd, Roberti 4th, nose to tail now. Well, tail lights are okay on the Lamborghini, but it's a class-leading car. Now the lights seem to be okay, so it's taken a while to get around that drama, but now it looks as though all is well. Everything is illuminated as it should be. Mikael Bartels then in that 3rd place, coming under more and more pressure from Paolo Roberti. The gap coming down between them. At the start of this lap, it was over a second. And we've just had into the pits Jean-Carl Vernet. So down the pit road he comes. Is this the end? The car's still 10th. Yes, it's the end, isn't it? It is angled towards the garage, and that is game over. Even if they work on the car and get it back out, it'll be so far down, it's only going to be a test exercise. So effectively, number 1 is a retirement from the race. 31 on the timing screen, the race director reminding the team it has to have its headlights on. Well, they're on now, and here comes Paolo Roberti at the inside. That's for 3rd place, and through he goes. The Porsche moves ahead of the Ferrari on the inside, so Paolo Roberti up into 3rd place. The car that won at Monza creeping back into the picture. Remember, it was down in the teens in that middle stint after time was lost in its first pit stop, and now Paolo Roberti hustling on back into contention, and he has just gone past the man that took pole position, past the car that led in the early stint of the race, past the car that was 3rd when it pitted, and Mikael Bartels just dropping away. I'm still intrigued to know what's going on in that car. It does not look anywhere near as competitive as it should do. As I said earlier on in the stint, there was contact between Salaquada and others in the early part. Whether it's that bit of contact that's caused something that's, as the race wears on, causing it to lose pace, it's hard to gauge, but there's just no way that car is looking as competitive as it should do. Bartels, we know, is a quick driver, and the Ferrari fading away now in 4th place. BMW leading. So Maxime Martin is still clear up front. Marcel Fassler is second and doing his best to hunt him down, but the gap's going up, in fact, in the middle sector of the lap. Jean-Carl Vernet, as we've just seen, has retired into the pit lane. And what else do we have in the classes now? We've got the GT4 class being led by the number 62 Lotus, which means therefore that Andrina Guga and Matthias Gamalf are back into the lead of the class, but they've got to make another pit stop. That's only done 1 stop. So although they've got great fuel economy in that car, the regulations say you've got to do 2 stops, and that car has got another one to make then before the very end. So the class lead now, but it's not going to stay that way. How's the 32 Audi got on after its earlier woes with the damage to the bodywork? That car is now in 16th place. You're looking at 33, which is second, Marcel Fassler. But now, with Bert Langin still shown as being at the wheel of that car, number 32, he is in 16th place. It surprises me if Bert Langin is still in that car. I would have thought Felipe Albuquerque should have been in it by now. Now, let's catch up with the GT4 class leader. Andrina Guga is in the pits, and so too is Haley.
Andrina's quite a performance getting out of the Lotus, leading the GT4 at the moment.
I'm quite nervous because it's not already finished the race, so everything is open, and now I have to go again in about 5 minutes. I hope I will get it home. So.
Thank you.
Andrina Guga, much more competitive in this race than when we last saw her in the Maserati at Monza. The Maserati was good to have on the grid, but it didn't have the same sort of pace. Different co-driver as well, in fact, for Andrina Guga for this race, teaming up with Matthias Gamal for the first time. It's Matthias at the wheel of the car. But up front, BMW leading Audi. From Porsche, Paolo Roberti third, so it's Maxime Martin leading Marcel Fassler. Then Roberti's third, fourth is Michael Bartels, fifth is Jean-Luc Bobelic, and sixth is Julian Rodriguez. Seventh is the number 2 Ferrari of Louis Machiels. Now, I was talking a while ago about the Pro-Am Cup class lead. Bobelic lapping in the 44s last time, Machiels in the 42, so that gap coming down a little bit between them. Over the timing line goes Michael Bartels. Another lap in the 43s. All of a sudden, Paolo Roberti is the fastest man on the circuit because Maxime Martin's pace has been slackened off a little bit, lapping in the 43s. Roberti now in the 141s, 2 seconds a lap quicker, but he's got to make up about half a lap, so, or over half a lap. It's just not going to happen for him. Now this is for 6th and 7th. And we saw the battle earlier on. Julian Rodriguez keeping Louis Machiels behind him. It is still the same situation. The Aston Martin keeping the Ferrari behind. And then Fred Makovici is 8th, having just done the best first sector of anybody in the race in number 4, the second of the Hexis Aston Martins, catching up to these two. On board with Julian Rodriguez. Pierre Brass-Mena and Jan Clare having done a good job in this car. 5th in class it runs. And Louis Machiels lapped faster last time around, but he hasn't yet been able to find a way past as things get darker here at Magny-Cours. The race has got 28 minutes still to run, and it's going to finish just about in the total darkness, isn't it? Which was always the intention of the organisers, to have a race into the evening, never a total night race. They got that all out of their system in the Spa 24 hours, but something different in the calendar, a race into the evening. And very much a compact format this. They had free practice yesterday, but the pre-qualifying, qualifying and a race all on the same day. It's been a long day for the teams, long day for the drivers, but the gentlemen racers can be back at work on Monday and pay for their weekend sport, so it's all worked out to the gentlemen drivers' pockets, the backbone of this type of racing. And it's certainly been a great concept, the Blancpain Endurance Series. Has some good grids and some great racing all season. Gap coming down still between the Aston Martin, Julian Rodriguez, and Louis Macchio's in the Ferrari. These cars with different strengths. I think it's fair to say that the Aston Martin has the strength from the start line all the way to the Adelaide hairpin because it's a fast part of the circuit, whereas the Ferrari would be a bit more nimble, so it's good through the infield. One or two more teams getting ready perhaps for their last pit stop, or in one or two cases if they need a bit more fuel, they're ready. The pit booms there up and down the pit road for some. I hope they're not going to be used again. We know that the Lotus is going to have to come in. You heard Andrina Guga talking about the fact she will take over the 62 Lotus Driving Academy car. Now I think that's going to lose in the class because although that car is leading, not that far behind is number 63, which is going to be taken over by Chris Ward, and Chris then is going to be able, I reckon, to get the lead of the class on this next pit stop. Now, there's number 20, Jean-Luc Bobelic, is still being caught by number 3. Julian Rodriguez goes through, and as I've been saying for the last few laps, Louis Macchio's not just getting on the tail of the Aston, but closing on Bobelic for the Pro-Am Cup lead. So there you can see the 3 cars, the battle becoming ever more relevant now. The trouble is for Macchio's that he can't do anything about that Ferrari until he's dispensed with the Aston Martin, and that just ain't happening. Up towards Adelaide they go, and the battle on for 6th and 7th, and it's going to be 5th, 6th and 7th before much longer. Jean-Luc Bobelic lapping in the 44s. It's not been a massive gain from the 2 behind, but it's been adding up over lap after lap after lap. Brakes glowing red hot now on the Aston. Spectacular pictures being displayed now as the cars go through the Adelaide hairpin. But it's a matter of time, really, isn't it, for Jean-Luc Bobelic to lose this class lead as we get now into the last 26 minutes of the race. He's on borrowed time there. It was Jean-Luc Bobelic who, along with Franck Morel and Ludovic Badet and Guillaume Moreau, won at Spa. But the car that's chasing after him, of Louis Macchio's, won the points, the half points, at 6 and at 12 hours. Even though the car was black flagged, it was able to keep its points at that part of the race, 6 and 12 hours. But also, Morel, Badet and Bobelic took a win at Navarra earlier on in the season. So they've had a good year in the Pro-Am Cup, but is this going to be a win, or can the number 2 Ferrari displace the Sofrev Autosport Promotion car before the end of the race? Well, the one that's between them in a different category is the number 3 Aston Martin. You're riding with Julian Rodriguez now. We've got just under 25 minutes of the race to go. And there is the Aston wriggling its way through traffic out of the chicane, and they're all bunching up. Here they come. So 20 Ferrari laps in the 45s, 2 Ferrari in the 44s. In a sense, we really need Julian Rodriguez to get past Jean-Luc Bobelic, and then we can have the Ferraris scrapping for the class lead. Up front, a very slow lap by Maxime Martin. Maxime Martin, the leader, has just done a lap 5 seconds adrift of what he was doing earlier on, so the gap's coming down all of a sudden, remarkably, between the top 2. A slow lap by the race leader. Is that a rogue lap, or is this the start of something significant? Next time around we'll check. But as I say, a 1:45 by the race leader is quite a slow lap. There he is. All looks well, so let's just suggest it was traffic. First sector time wasn't great this time. Middle sector was okay. And that is Rodriguez off the road. Well, he was catching Jean-Luc Bobelic, and he's gone off up to the Adelaide hairpin by the look of it, and that is one very damaged Aston Martin. It is all happening all of a sudden. Gap drops between the top 2. And number 3, that was in 6th place, is going no further. 23 3/4 minutes of the race remaining. You can see where the accident started. Look at the damage up against the wall. Look at where the tar marks are. And Julian Rodriguez has had a big off. There's bodywork, there's debris on the road. Is this going to be a safety car? If a safety car were to come out now, this, look at the debris over the road. I would imagine that has got to be a safety car. And I'm not saying that in hope. It's the poly sign that's gone everywhere, but can they thread their way through it? There's also lots of damage to the car. There was bits of the rear wing scattered everywhere on the road. But that coming from a fast part of the circuit up to the hairpin, I'd be surprised if they allowed that to continue without the safety cars being deployed. We do get the safety car, and Maxime Martin, after a lap in the 145s, has done another lap in the 143s. We do get the safety car period, and this potentially now throws lifelines not just to the Marcel Fassler Audi, but to Paolo Roberti. It's not just to get that car out of the way, it's also to get the debris off the road, the polystyrene sign, bits of the rear wing of the car. And so now 62, the GT4 leading Lotus, comes into the pit lane. Anybody that's a bit marginal on fuel can come in now as well. They get a get out of jail free card at this point as well. So it is almost time to perfection, this, to close everything up with 22 minutes and a bit on the clock. It's a shame we've lost the Aston. What it also gives us now is Jean-Luc Bobelic and Louis Machiels getting themselves together for the Pro-Am Cup lead. Right, this is what happened. We'll get the replay, I think, in a moment. There it is, off goes the Aston. Big impact into the wall, and you can see it's not just that polystar inside, there's lots of bodywork splayed across the road as well. Difficult to gauge whether he got a shove from behind or as he tried to jink across and get the line for the corner, whether there was contact from the side. There's 62, the GT4 class leading Lotus in the pits. Now, they've done the driver change. They've not refueled it by the look of it, so that means it's going to be a shorter pit stop, and with the safety car out as well, this could well be the perfect situation for that team. Matthias Gamow to give way to Andrina Guga. Well, there is the leader, picked up by the safety car. Now what we need to see is how many cars are between Maxime Martin and Marcel Fassler, and between Fassler and Paolo Roberti, who over the last few laps was proving to be the quickest man on the circuit. This is going to be a rather longer safety car period as well, just to get not just cars out of the way, but also bodywork off the road. Right, here's the replay. Let's have another look. Can we gauge whether it was a tag from behind or the side? Just the car suddenly veers off the road. So I was wondering whether by trying to gain places as he moved across to get the line for the corner, there was contact from behind. But ultimately, it's hard to gauge off that. What we do know is that Julian Rodriguez is out of the race. We know that we've got a safety car. We know that there are bits everywhere. And of course, with all those shards of bodywork on the road, if anyone were to run over them in the darkness and get a punctured tyre, then that's even more strife. So the safety car, totally the right decision. Eduardo Freitas, the race director, a hugely experienced GT race official, and makes the call. So out comes the safety car, and the field all concertinas up, and the marshals are going to be pretty busy with their brooms now. In fact, so big are some of the bits, you can pick them up or kick them out of the way. But the Aston Martin, you'll notice, is now having a second snatch vehicle. The first pickup truck that arrived, I think, got bogged down in the gravel, so the second snatch vehicle is here to crane it out of the way. And Julian Rodriguez, after a big impact into the wall, good to see him okay, but it was a mighty impact, that. So into the last 20 minutes of the race, and the field behind the safety car has worked its way through the first sector of what is now lap number 91. That's GT4, the way it looks at the moment. Andrina Guga led when the car came into the pit lane. Chris Ward in the Nissan is second, and then Greg Mansell's Lotus third. But could it be a first win for Andrina Guga and Matthias Gamow? And they may have done this very, very well, because if they've only made one refueling stop but a second change of driver, it becomes a much shorter pit stop, and the safety car has played right into their hands. So at the end of the next lap we can double check if Andrina has kept hold of her advantage, but I think the answer is yes, she has. Let's just see then. The field comes through the Chateau d'Eau part of the circuit, and this is the race leader's view. For how long will he have to sit behind the safety car? The SC lights flash on the gantry near the start and finish line, to which they approach now. So there's the BMW that leads the way, and where is Marcel Fassler? Let's just try and count back markers. There was 1, 2 back markers between, 3, 4, because that's the wrong Audi, 5, 6, 7 back markers, 8, 9, oh dear, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 cars, 12 or 13 cars between the leader and Marcel Fassler, and that is not ideal. It's a lot of traffic to work a way past, and Paolo Roberti, of course, have got even more traffic to find a way through. Now, the Porsche, which was proving to be quicker anyway in that most recent stint, I still reckon is going to be on for second place by the end. So there are 4 cars between Fassler and Roberti. That is the one that's more likely to change, but Maxime Martin, having counted up the back markers, looks as though he's going to be safe. It's going to take Fassler a little while to get through the traffic, and some of those back markers are able to run at the same pace, those that are, for example, 6th, 7th, 8th in the race anyway. So the situation as we have it is that there are 17.5 minutes still to run, and Maxime Martin then doesn't have quite the size of lead he had. It's only 14 seconds now, but he's got a very, very big cushion of lots of cars, 13 cars or so between him and Marcel Fassler's Audi. Still intrigued to know why we had those two slowish laps, though, by Martin before the safety car came out. A 1:45 and a 1:43. That wasn't too bad. It was the 1:45 lap, which was either a moment or a problem or lots of traffic getting in his way. But the circuit is getting clearer. Let's go back to the pit lane and hear from Jan Claret, whose car has just exited the race. He is with Haley. Let's go back down to the pit lane.
Yeah, and unfortunately Julien has had quite a shunt there. Do you know what happened?
I don't know exactly for the moment, but I think he lost the car on the brake, and the car was not so easy on the brake for this weekend. But it's a big deception for the team, because the mechanic make a really, really good job all the weekend. And we have the good position. He was 6th. He was perfect for him, for us. And now we will see at Silverstone. I hope to finish in top 5.
Thank you.
And Silverstone is the venue of the next round of the Blancpain Endurance Series over the weekend of the 8th and 9th of October. And if you like GT racing, it's the place to be, because there's also the British GT Championship there that weekend as well. So a little mini GT festival at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. 16 minutes of the race remain then. And of course, this is the other factor to bear in mind now, because not just cars between the competitive ones, back markers, but also the number of racing laps that are going to be available. So irrespective of how quick a driver may be, it's the number of racing laps that they can squeeze in. At the moment they're doing 2 minutes 40s, which is about a minute slower than a proper race lap. Sorry, over 3 minutes in fact they're doing now that the safety car has slowed them right down. So much slower than a proper racing lap. And 15.5 minutes of the race remain. We will get racing laps in, I should think. It's not going to be that long before we get the circuit clear, but only when the race director is absolutely happy that there aren't any bits lying on the ground will he bring the safety car back in. It's all looking good for Marc VDS Racing. Yet to be winners in the Blancpain Endurance Series. They've had some good results elsewhere. They've shown speed as well this season. But as far as the Pro Cup is concerned, 3rd at Monza, and that remains the team's best finish. So it could be yet another winner. It will mean that we have had a different car winning and a different team winning each round of the championship in Pro Cup, which underlines just how competitive a season it has been. There's Marcel Fassler then in 2nd place. Just wonder whether the WRT team are going to be hugely concerned about him not being able to catch the leader and just get the points. More important, therefore, that they keep the points for 2nd and than lose those to Paolo Roberti, who is not that far behind. Look in the rather threatening Porsche for Orlando Sport. So the track sweeping truck on the circuit. Everybody goes past, but yes, you can understand why it's that rather than a man and a broom, because now that the race is in the night, the track has got to be absolutely clear. And there are still quite a few marbles offline. Marshall there bravely in the road with his yellow flag, so it's going to be another lap or so under the safety car, all of which helps the fuel economy of the leading cars. Now, that Lotus pit stop in GT4 has given us a change of leader after all. It has put now Chris Ward back ahead in the Nissan, with Andrina Guga down in 2nd place. So they did lose time, but they're still on the same lap as the Nissan, and not that far adrift either. So whether Andrina Guga has got the pace to get ahead of Chris Ward, again, depends on how much time of the race remains when we go green. But the Nissan that took victory at Spa and took 2nd place at Navarra could be on here for another win, which would be great news for a team that was really downcast this morning. When I spoke to Chris Ward, he was really struggling to get much grip out of the tyres on a greasy road, which is what it was at the end of the the pre-qualifying session this morning. These dry conditions absolutely perfect for everybody involved, but this morning the greasy road was catching out 1 or 2, and the tyres much more happy, and the balance of the car much better for the Nissan team now that we've got these dry conditions. So Chris Ward leads the class. Try and have a quick look when the car's just come past me in a moment where the Nissan is relative to the 62 Lotus. Got 12.5 minutes to go, and as you can see, we're still under safety car conditions here at Magny-Cours. Round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. So Maxime Martin leads the way. Marcel Fassler runs second. Third, Paolo Roberti in the Porsche. Fourth is Michael Bartels. In fifth place is Jean-Luc Bobelic. He's been thrown a bit of a lifeline as well, because this again deprives the chasing Louis Machiels of many flying laps to try and get past him. And the track, I reckon, is just about as clear as it's going to be now. So maybe this will be the last time through behind the safety car. And it's potentially, if this is the last safety car lap, going to be round about 9 minutes worth of racing, and a flying lap is, in these sorts of conditions and in this light, or lack of light, going to be round about the 43-44 mark, isn't it, as a flying lap, 1 minute 43. So we'll be into the last 10 minutes of the race. There's Mark van der Straten, who's been out taking photographs and says, don't speak too soon. Yes, we get the message, Mark. Yes, 11 minutes and change remaining, but it's looking good. So Maxime Martin weaving around to maintain the warmth in the tyres. The BMW then is going to be, of course, released soon. We've not yet had the message on the screen to tell us that the safety car is going to come in, but the Michelin tyres needing to have the temperature kept in them if possible. And now that we've gone to the darkness, the overall temperature here, the ambient temperature, much cooler, of course. So the BMW leads the way, and this becoming very much a car to have in GT3 racing. We saw how well they've gone in the GT3 European Championship. We saw how well Schubert went at Spa, finishing second in the 24 hours this year. Couldn't match the pace of what effectively was a works Audi, but even so, it was a great job. A reliable car, a quick car. Marc VDS ran this car in the 24 hours of Spa, but it retired with problems. Well, here it has gone so far absolutely faultlessly. And waiting for the safety car, still with the lights flashing then, to come up towards the end of lap number 94. Maxime Martin having done the fastest lap of the race. And he's the man that leads as we get into the last 10 minutes of the race now. So as the safety car comes down towards the completion of lap 94, we are going to have it in at the end of this lap. We'll go racing this time. Safety car will be in at the end of the lap, and so as it peels towards the pit lane, Maxime Martin leads. How much ground can Marcel Fassler make up? How much ground can Paolo Roberti make up? Here they come. BMW leads, 9.5 on the clock. We go racing once more. Maxime Martin leads at Magny-Cours, and as the rest of the field comes storming through, we've got the Audi of Philippe Albuquerque in a big hurry to try to gain ground as well. What's going to happen between Bobelic and Louis Machiels is the other question. And what about Marcel Fassler? Can he gain any places? Can Paolo Roberti take second away from the Audi? 9 minutes and 17 seconds on the clock as the race gets back underway. Maxime Martin here has got to keep pushing on. The tyres would have lost temperature, so it wouldn't be a surprise if we didn't see one or two drivers getting a bit crossed up as 51 goes through there. Fabrizio Basso up towards the Adelaide hairpin. 9 minutes of the race remain. It has been, as I suggested it may well turn out to be, another fantastic 3 hours of racing. And although it's gone a little bit quiet for the lead, we've still had plenty of battles lower down the order, and they are still not all resolved yet. Look how busy it is going up towards Adelaide hairpin this time. There's number 2, Ferrari, which is Louis Machiels as he gone round the outside, possibly of Jean-Luc Bobelic there. I think he may have just gained the place, and that has potentially put Machiels up into the class. Didn't need another shot to check, but Louis Machiels, who's quicker anyway, looks like he's gained ground. There's one car that runs off the road. It's one of the Lamborghinis there. That I suspect is 31 Greg Gilbert. So BMW leads Audi in the first sector of the lap. It was the BMW with the clear road ahead being able to lap quicker. Of course, Fassler's now stuck in traffic, and Paolo Roberti trying to work his way through traffic also. Jean Calvene, you will have just spotted, is back in the race, down now in 15th place, hoping to get Frank Kekler some class points there. Paolo Roberti working his way through the chicane up towards Chateau d'Eau, but the race leader absolutely streaking away. Up towards the end of the lap comes Maxime Martin, and the win is theirs for the taking now. Marc VDS Racing, Maxime Martin, Marcus Peltola and Bas Leinders, who did that first very impressive stint in the car, go through now onto lap number 96. Marcel Fassler there getting stuck in traffic still. Jean Calvene behind. Over the line goes Fred Makovici, who's up into 5th place now. Louis Magny-Cours goes through 6th, so Magny-Cours has on that lap, as I said, taken over the lead of the class. So the Pro-Am Cup being led now by Louis Magny-Cours ahead of Jean-Luc Bobelic. Marcel Fassler is 14 seconds behind the leader, but his last lap was a much slower one because of the traffic. So although Fassler is a lot closer, he just can't get himself through the back markers quickly enough, and there's no traffic now really for Maxime Martin to worry about. In the remaining 7 minutes, I'll be surprised if he caught another back marker. He's going to have the clear road pretty much up to the end of the race now. It has worked out absolutely perfectly for number 40 BMW. Maxime Martin it is, leading the way, and there is Marcel Fassler trying to find a way past Jean-Luc Bobelic. So it's Martin from Fassler from Roberti. Bartels is 4th. Fred Mako now up into 5th place. That safety car's really helped Fred Makovici, because with everybody bunching up, he's been able to gain a couple of places on the restart. 6th is Louis Magny-Cours leading the class. 7th is Bobelic. 8th now is Richard Westbrook in the Nissan, going great guns first time out. 9th is Ricardo Bravo in the Lamborghini from the Rhinos Lightfoot team, and then in 10th place now is the number 80 at Porsche, and that's the car with Philippe Gache and Eric Clement sharing, and it is Eric Clement who does the last stint in that car. 6 minutes and change remain in round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Over the timing line goes the race leader. Maxime Martin's lap is a 1:41, good in the dark, but of course it's a clear road ahead of him. And where is Marcel Fassler? There he is, coming up towards the completion of the lap. You can see how far back he is now. And Jean-Carl Vernet running with him. That Ferrari, having lost time in its pit garage, not a retirement, thankfully, back in the race and going very well now. So frustration that the car had its problems. There it goes, Jean-Carl Vernet down in 15th place. That means they actually drop back behind the Bertlangin, Philippe Albuquerque, Stefan Ortelli, Audi. Martin and Fassler, the gap's going up 19 seconds because Marcel Fassler is still stuck in traffic, but it's only now half a second between Marcel Fassler and Paolo Roberti. So second place is going to change before the end, which is 5 minutes away, but where is it going to change? That's the question. So spot your headlights, find an Audi, find a Porsche together. There they are. Paolo Roberti looking for a way round the Audi, and he can't yet do so. And by the look of it, they've got the Vita 4-1 Ferrari just holding him up a little bit as one way goes Paolo Roberti. Can he duck up the inside, coming down toward the chicane? He can, he's through. He's done it on the inside. Paolo Roberti goes second, but he runs out wide, and fighting back straight away is Marcel Fassler, but there's no gap on the inside line. There's contact though, and the Porsche gets unsettled, and Marcel Fassler goes back ahead of him. Roberti hangs onto the inside line, going up now towards Chateau d'Eau. Is it going to be the Porsche or is it going to be the Audi that comes out ahead? It's all been a bit robust, this. So Paolo Roberti is through, back in the place, then back up into second spot, despite Marcel Fassler's elbows out style. It has not worked for him, and so Paolo Roberti is second. And this car, remember, in that middle stint, had lost time. It was way down in the teens, but Paolo Roberti, as predicted, with a very good last stint, has worked wonders. The safety car has helped him, I'll grant you, but there he is up into second place now. That's as good as it's going to get unless something happens for the BMW. And that incident between 9 and 33, Roberti and Fassler, is under investigation. The leaders go through. We have got 4 minutes and counting of the race still to go. But Marcel Fassler, spurred into action here, is trying to come back at the Porsche. Paolo Roberti, a tremendous effort this to get him into second position. We've just had Paul Longchamp bring 22 into the pit lane, incidentally, so even with 3.5 minutes to go, 1 or 2 cars are still having to get round problems and pit. But up front, Maxime Martin leads by 23.7 seconds. Try as he might, Paolo Roberti ain't going to make up that, is he? He's quick, but he's not going to catch this car. The BMW Z4 leads the way, and Bas Linders is just about able to think of himself as a winner now. So all is good at Marc VDS Racing Team. Some in the garage looking rather more interested than others, it has to be said. It's probably gone past bedtime for the younger members of Marc VDS, looking at who was there. But Maxime Martin is set for a race win. We have got 3 minutes to go, but this car has not missed a beat a race long. It's been a faultless effort by the Marc VDS team, and also by Maxime Martin, by Marcus Paltela, and by Bas Linders, who did that first stint. Yes, I'll grant you, Marcus Paltela lost time in this car in the middle stint, but they've been able to regroup from that fine. Had it not been, though, for that tyre problem for the number 1 Ferrari, Could it have been a different situation? In the end, that gearbox problem for Jean-Carl Vernet makes it an academic question, but it would have been interesting to see whether or not the Ferrari could have jumped ahead with a better pit stop. In the end, though, the BMW came out with a big lead and has just kept on extending it. Maxime Martin has done the fastest lap of the race. He's on target for a first win in the Blancpain Endurance Series, and what this also underlines is how much better a team Marc VDS has become in recent seasons, and how much Maxime Martin has developed, because you tend to think of Bas Leinders with all his years of experience as being the quickest driver in that car, but Maxime Martin, with the best lap of the race to his credit, I think it's fair to say, has driven a very, very impressive drive. And Maxime, you wouldn't have expected to be the quickest of those three a few years ago, but he does a lot of racing, he's done a lot of miles, and now very much establishing himself as one of the leading lights of GT racing. So there's going to be this lap and one more for the race leader. Looking at the clock, Martin to Paolo Roberti, 24 seconds is the gap, with in third place now Marcel Fatzler, and in fourth place Michael Bartels, who you tend to forget about really in this stint, don't you? It's just never looked that good for the car that led in the hands of Philippe Salaquada earlier on. So Michael Bartels is fourth, and Fred Makovici is in fifth place in the number 4 Aston Martin, and sixth is number 2, which is the Louis Machiels driven Ferrari, leading now the Pro-Am Cup ahead of Jean-Luc Bobelic, and that gap is widening between the two of them. GT4 is Chris Ward ahead of Andrina Guga, but the gap's coming down and it's only 7 seconds. GT4 might just yet change before the very end. It's going to be touch and go. Chris Ward has probably got enough in hand, but it is just about conceivable that they may get themselves together. We're on the last lap now. Maxime Martin has gone through, and there you can see Jean-Carl Vernet down in 15th place. The similarly liveried Ferrari that bounces over the curb then is in 6th spot, Louis Machiels, although coming back in that time is Jean-Luc Bobelic. What Vita 4-1 needs is for Vernet to get between them and then just act as the buffer between Machiels and Bobelic, and I think that's the target here. Then behind them you've got Paolo Roberti, who's in 2nd place, but there is Maxime Martin then, who is on target for victory. The number 40 BMW Z4, also underlining the fact that it's been a good move to move from the Ford GT to this car. It's a shame we haven't got the Ford on the grid because it's another charismatic shape, but the team switching to the BMW for Spa and for this race, and Maxime Martin, who came from the Peugeot Spider Cup and the Eurocup Megane Trophy into GT3 racing, initially with Morgan, was part of the Jean-Pierre Jabouille operated Morgan GT3 team for a while, then hooked up in Marc VDS Racing, the Belgian team which, wherever possible, tries to use homegrown talents, the one exception being Marcus Paltela, but he's raced for so long within Belgian categories that he's almost an honorary Belgian, I suppose, these days. Bas Leinders and Mark van der Straten then look on, and 2 more corners they only have to hold their breath for, because down towards the Complex du Lycée comes the number 40 BMW. There's the checkered flag. The Blancpain Endurance Series race into the night at Magny-Cours is won by Marc VDS Racing, by the BMW Z4 of Maxime Martin, Bas Leinders and Marcus Paltela. A delighted team owner, a delighted driver, and a great result for the team. Second, after an absolutely storming drive, Paolo Roberti, and there you're looking at the Pro-Am Cup top 2, where Louis Machiels is just going to hang on, having taken the win in the class. Then he took the lead, he wins the class from Jean-Luc Bobelic. Paolo Roberti for Autolando Sport comes home second, Marcel Fatzler third, which is not great for Greg Franchi. Yes, it's points, but it's not as many as he wanted. He will maintain and increase his championship lead, but not by the margin he wanted. But even so, that's still a good outcome, particularly with Frank Kekler being so far down the order. One more race at Silverstone still to go. So that is how the top 4 looks at the end of the race. Number 31, you can see on the screen, Greg Gilbert, 16th, winning the Gentleman Trophy class in the race. But BMW from Porsche, Audi and Ferrari, the top 4. And Marc VDS, understandably, very, very happy indeed. It's been a long time coming, their first Blancpain win. Victories they've had in the GT1 World Championship have been in the 60-minute sprint race format, but to crack endurance racing is something rather different. It's happened for them at last, and it's going to be a very popular win, I think, that for Bas Linders, Maxime Martin. Now, in GT4, the gap has come down, but Chris Ward's Nissan is going to hang on in there and come through to score a second win of the year. So Chris Ward comes over the line. And where is the Lotus? It's not that far behind. Andrino Guga then oh so near to a class win. There it is. And the gap between them as the Lotus come through in the end was 8.7 seconds. Chris Ward was able to respond at the end, and the Lotus lost a bit of pace as well. But it's the two of them on the lead lap. And Chris Ward, Alex Buncombe and Jordan Tress on the winners. Andrino Guga and Matthias Gemauf then come home in second place. I think it has been a rip-roaring success, this race into the night. Magny-Cours has been a great circuit for these cars. Some wonderful racing all the way through. And it feels like a proper endurance race, doesn't it now, with the cars in the darkness, with the headlights on, making their way into the pit lane and towards Parc Fermé. And for some teams, the celebrations are about to start. For others, the soul-searching is about to start. I can't imagine that Mikael Bartels is going to be hugely enamoured of what's happened for number 29. Certainly not for the number 1 car, which has cost Frank Kekler a chance of making up some ground in the championship. And as the winning cars are received down in the pit lane, drivers will be there in a moment, and then of course the winning teams will go to the podium. But Paolo Roberti being congratulated by Raffaele Gianmaria. And Bas Linders, as you can see, looking very, very pleased indeed. So the winning cars down the pit road, and there is the first place board being brandished by Bas Linders, who is absolutely elated with that, leaps in to congratulate Maxime Martin, and understandably so as well. So the celebrations are going to start. We'll hear from the drivers, of course, very shortly also. But first of all, even before Maxime's been allowed to take off his crash helmet, there are photographs to take. And looking into the classes, you get points for being in the top 10 in your class. Now, where was the Berlangin Audi in the end? It got home in 5th, 6th, 7th in class, for which they get 6 points. Just looking to see, out of all of this, whether we yet have a championship resolved. That gives them 56. I reckon Greg Franchi is about 1.5 points away from winning the championship. It's going to go to Silverstone, but it's going to be Greg Franchi, the Belgian driver, going there with one hand on the title. So Greg Franchi, who came here with the championship lead, finishing in 3rd spot, and therefore increasing the 64.5 that he had coming into this round of the championship. But you get 25 for a win, but he's not quite there yet in terms of being a race win away from everybody else. Let's go down to the pit lane then. There are some very happy Belgian and Finnish drivers, and Haley is with them.
Baz, congratulations, a second row start and a top step finish.
Yeah, it was really great. I enjoyed it, all my stint. It was really, really nice, and I think we had a good team. I mean, 3 good drivers with a good car. I mean, what do you want more?
Congratulations, Marcus. Did you enjoy your stint in the BMW?
Actually, not at all. It was one of my worst stints, but I'm just happy that I kept it on the lead, and I have to thank Bas and Max for a great job, and of course the team also, because they did 2 great perfect pit stops, so I'm very happy.
And Max, you brought it home. What a result for the team. I think there's going to be quite a bit of partying at Mr. VDS this evening.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good result for the team. We did a really good job, hard job, new car for us, so first win, it's really good, and yeah, we'd like to thank everybody in the team.
Thank you, guys.
a very honest Marcus Paltela, saying it was one of his worst stints. I know it was a new car to him, and we did see the car losing pace, but he kept it in the lead. Even though the lead disappeared, it was nose to tail. He never cracked under the pressure from Nico Verdonk, who was one of many very impressive drivers in that race, who certainly didn't get the result he perhaps merited. Well, what a race. And although in the end it went a little bit quiet for the race lead, it's been a very popular win for Marc VDS Racing, Maxime Martin, Marcus Paltela and Bas Leinders. A class win in the Pro-Am Cup for Louis Machiels, Paul van Splunteren and Nick Hommerson. The Gentleman Trophy being won by Greg Gilvert, Fabien Michal and Georges Cabin. And in the GT4 class, Chris Ward, Jordan Tresson and Alex Buncombe coming home as the class winners. Now let's go back down to the pit lane. Paolo Roberti brought Orlando Sports Porsche home in second place. Let's catch up with the drivers and with Haley.
Congratulations, Paolo. That was quite a performance in the Porsche.
Yeah, I did a great performance because it was impossible for me to arrive a second, but a little bit helped us the safety car at the end. But it was really fast because every lap was 41 also in the traffic. The car was good, my teammate did a good job. We are really happy. We still fight for the championship, but it's very hard. We are really, really happy.
So, Luca, I could feel the tension in the garage towards the end of the race there.
A good race. I'm very happy for me and teammate and the team because it was very hard with that competitor. It's always a battle, a war, but I'm very happy.
And Raffaele, you take the battle for the championship to Silverstone.
Yeah, because with the overtake of Paolo on Fasler, we had the possibility to fight for the championship in Silverstone. So we are very confident because in Silverstone we can do a very good race.
Thank you.
So the gap narrows also between the Greg Franchi points total and those of the Italians you've just been hearing from. And I think we'll get third place in a moment. Haley's busy orchestrating all of this to hear from Marcel Fassler and from, of course, his co-drivers of Greg Franchi and Andrea Piccini. So there is confirmation of how the cars came across the line, with the Marcus Paltela, Bas Leinders and Maxime Martin BMW winning here at Magny-Cours, and it was bang on 100 laps after the safety car, second safety car period that we had. Gianluca Roda, Raffaele Giammaria and Paolo Roberti second, Greg Franchi, Andrea Piccini, Marcel Fassler third, Martin Matschke, Philippe Salaquara and Michael Bartels fourth, ahead of Henri Moser, Gilles Vanelay and Fred Makovici fifth, Nick Hommerson, Louis Machiels and Paul van Splunteren class winners sixth, ahead of 7th and 2nd in the Pro-Am class, Franck Morel, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Ludovic Badet. The Nissan, first time out, bags 8th, not a bad effort, 2 laps down, Richard Westbrook and David Brabham. 9th, the Lambo of Duarte Felix da Costa, Lorenzo Bero de Vega and Ricardo Bravo. And the top 10 rounded out by Eric Clement and Philippe Gache, ahead of Jack Gerber and Matt Griffin. And then 12th place over the line was car 51, which was the AF Corsa Ferrari of Forgione, Basso and Mugelli. Behind them, De Breuer and Kelders were 13th, Longchamp, Albuquerque and Ortelli 14th in a race of what could have been. The same true for Verdonk, Kekler and Verne. 16th and class winners, Georges Cabin, Fabien Michel and Greg Gilvert, ahead of Pioli, Milani and Villa. Then it was Brodkeuren, Harkema and Russo in 18th place. And there you can see, as the caption scrolls through, some of the problems and the cars that retired early on in the race. The number 45 Lamborghini, for example, we saw stopped on the circuit. We had Eric Carroll, number 42, going into the gravel. The 61 Lotus pitted and never rejoined. 10 crashed out. 59 had its problem in the lack of power. That was a retirement. And 64 was an early retirement after damage the Lamborghini. So, as ever, in GT racing and in the Blancpain Endurance Series, many teams with differing fortunes, but the one thing that remains a constant has been great racing, and this round has been no exception. So the drivers then being brought towards the podium, and we will have the top 3 drivers in a moment, because there, for third place, you can see Greg Franchi, Marcel Fassler, and also making his way up the steps is Andrea Piccini. So the third place drivers out onto the podium then for the Belgian Audi Club, the WRT team. And Greg Franchi then continues to hold sway within the points standings in the Blancpain Endurance Series. with the second place drivers then a little bit nearer now. Paolo Roberti, Gianluca Roda and Raffaele Gianmaria, but it is going to be a very noisy reception, no doubt, for Bas Leinders, for Maxime Martin, for Marcus Paltela and for Mark van der Straten, who makes his way out as, of course, the representative of the winning team. Victory in round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series goes to 2 Belgians and a Finn, a German car from a Belgian team. Bas Leinders, Maxime Martin and Marcus Paltela for the top step of the podium, the winners here at Magny-Cours.
C'hai manco provato prima. Ma ha fatto
So the Belgian national anthem is played in France for the Marc VDS team as the winners then of the 4th round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and the top 3 overall, of course, also the top 3 within the Pro Cup. We'll have the other class podiums very shortly, but for a moment at least, the GT3 Pro Cup teams can celebrate. And the championship, as I say, heads to Silverstone for the final round, and it's all to play for. Greg Franchi has a good advantage, but it is not over yet. He could still just about be caught by the Autolando Sport Porsche drivers you can see nearest the camera. It's also just about conceivable, if either of those didn't finish and there was a win for Ortelli, Langin and Albuquerque, that they could take the title away at the very last round. And so far, each round of the championship has been won by a different team and a different car, and it all bodes well for a superb climax at Silverstone in October. So the celebrations on the podium, and quite a few teams will now go away and have a think about what it was that caused them to lose time, caused them to have problems during the Blancpain Endurance Series race. But victory then to Bas Leinders, to Marcus Paltelas and Maxime Martin at the end of round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series from Magny-Cours. From David Addison and Haley Coxon for now, goodbye. Trophies then to the winning drivers, and Bas Leinders, Marcus Paltela and Maxime Martin celebrate, but so also will Le Patron, because Mark van der Straten is there, trophy in hand. And now the champagne is about to be sprayed, but I was just wondering, looking at Marcus Paltela's demeanour, whether he almost feels as though he let the side down a bit. He kept the lead, but he hasn't got quite the same enthusiasm as that evinced by Bas Leinders and by Maxime Martin, but he was instrumental in that car maintaining its advantage. And okay, they may have been helped by the Vita 4-1 team with problems in the pits and then with that gear selection issue, but even so, it was a great effort by the Marc VDS team. And maybe there's a question to be posed in the press conference by somebody. What was it that made you stay with the Ford GT for so long? Because now that they switched to the BMW, it's looking very promising indeed. And the governor has just got drenched, as you can see. So the first win, therefore the best result of the season, of course, for Marc VDS within the Pro Cup in the Blancpain Endurance Series, and an excellent result by the Belgian team. And when you're the winners, you don't really mind getting that wet through champagne, do you? Certainly the boss doesn't. And the podium then is going to be made ready for the next podium ceremony that we will have. In a few moments' time, we'll have the Pro-Am Cup drivers up there. And so the class in the end, having been won by the Ferrari of Louis Machiels, Paul van Splunteren and Nick Hommerson, and we'll get those drivers up onto the podium very shortly. Second going to Ludovic Badet, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Franck Morel, and third in the Pro-Am Cup, going the way of the 3 Portuguese drivers in the Lamborghini, namely Lorenzo Beira de Vega, Ricardo Bravo and Duarte Felix da Costa. All of them young gun drivers, but without the success behind them at the very highest level, then they drop into the Pro-Am class. There's not an amateur driver amongst them, but they are still achieving their stellar results, rather than having yet won championships, but drivers to keep an eye to, that's for sure. So as the GT3 Pro-Am Cup drivers, there they are, make their way out. The Rhinos Lippert team, first of all, for third place, for then the Portuguese drivers of Duarte Felix da Costa, Lorenzo Barra da Veiga and Ricardo Bravo. Then for second place, the French team getting a good reception, Ludovic Badet, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Franck Morel. But the race winners making their way now, Nick Homerson, Louis Machiels and Paul van Splunteren onto the top step of the podium here at Magny-Cours, and that gives the first victory of the season to van Splunteren and the first overall win for Homerson and Machiels, having scored points for leading the class at 6 and 12 hours at Spa. So it's Ferrari, Lamborghini in the Pro-Am class. Trophies being presented then now to the winning drivers. And as I say, it's the first, what you might call proper win of the year for Homerson, Machiels and van Splunteren. But when Nick Homerson and Louis Machiels drove at Spa with Michael Bartels and Andrea Bertolini, they were leading their class at the 6 and the 12 hour mark, and they got half points then. But of course they were black flagged in the end, and the car wasn't able to take the finish of the race, so that gave victory at Spa to Ludovic Badet, Franck Morel and Jean-Luc Bobelic, along with Guillaume Moreau, who was the other driver of the car. And the champagne is sprayed a bit previously, I reckon, by the French drivers in the surviving Sofrev Autosport Promotion car. Paul van Splunteren clutching his trophy and spraying champagne, determined not to let one of them out of his sight. And the Dutch Porsche dealer, who goes very well racing Ferraris, it must be said, goes back onto the podium for photographs at the end of this fourth round of the championship. But that's the equal best result for the Portuguese drivers, you can see at the far end of the podium, because they were third at Navarra earlier on in the season, third in class I'm talking about, and they've done it again here at Magny-Cours. So a good effort once more by the Rhinos Lippert team. And the drivers now still soaking each other in champagne will make their way off the podium and head to the press conference. And the next drivers that we should have will be heading to the podium. We've got the GT4, the Gentleman Trophy and the Cup class all still to come. So the next to the podiums will be coming up in a moment or two. One or two of the retrieved cars are there looking a bit forlorn in the pit lane. And the GT4 class won for the second time this year by Nissan. The Gentleman Trophy class won for the third time by Georges Cabin, for the second time by Greg Gilbert, for the second time by Fabien Michel. So the Gentleman Trophy it is that we have next, and out then come the drivers for third place. First of all, you have there Philippe Broodkeuren, having brought the number 19 Porsche home third in class, and the top step of the podium goes to Fabien Michel, to Greg Gilbert, and to the larger-than-life frame of Georges Cabin, who, as is tradition in this circumstance, we saw it at Monza and at Navarra, brings the family with him. So the podium becomes very crowded, but Georges Cabin is a proper character who loves his racing, and he's on the top step of the podium after a third win of the year. So Georges Cabin, Fabien Michel and Greg Gilbert, whose last race, in fact, was at Silverstone a week ago in the Eurocup Magny Trophy, and that ended in retirement. Here he celebrates a class win. The second place team, you can see to their right, are for the second time this year Giorgio Piodi, Matteo Melani and Stefano Villa. But getting their trophies for third place are Brody, the pseudonymed Belgian, Philip Broodkeuren, Matthias Hakema, the Dutch driver, and having his first race in the championship, in fact the Luxembourg-based Pierre-Yves Rousseau. So smiles all round amongst the gentleman trophy racers. To be fair to Greg Gilbert, it wasn't that long ago that he was being talked of as an up-and-coming French GT driver, but these days racing within the gentleman trophy. And we've had the trophies to the second-placed team, now to Greg Gilbert, to Fabien Michel, and to Georges Cabin, who easily lifts up the younger members of the podium party. Winning team manager also receives his trophy, the car run by Ruffier Racing, although entered by Georges Cabin. And with trophies and children being brandished in the air for photographs, now the champagne is sprayed at the end of the gentleman trophy on the podium at Magny-Cours. And Georges Cabin selflessly sacrifices himself to keep his grandson dry. But as he makes his way off the podium now, it's a third-class win of the season. So the end of round 4 of the Blancpain Endurance Series, a tremendous race here at Magny-Cours. One round to go at Silverstone in October, but that's it from France. From Haley Coxon, from David Addison, bonne nuit.